Uhuru, as ready. Uhuru, Uhuru, everyone, and welcome back. I hope that everybody was able to get enough food for their physical being, because we got your heart and we got your minds covered, because we're going to feed into you today. That's what we do. The Black is Back Coalition. We are about the revolution and feeding into our people revolutionary skills to help us navigate and to win, to help us achieve Black power. And speaking of that, you'll notice behind me, hopefully you can see that I have the 19-point platform for Black self-determination. This is a very critical issue to understand, and a very critical point, because one of the things that the chairman has been accused of is interfering with elections. And we know that those scurrilous accusations have everything to do directly with the work of the Black is Back Coalition. And I should say, we know they're coming after the chairman, but they're coming after us. He's the symbol, but they're coming for us. And we are fighting back. We're not going to let that happen. But so what happened, I believe, I'm so bad with remembering the years, but about maybe 7, 8 years ago, and I won't forget this at all. I remember we were having discussions and meetings as we do. And I remember that the chairman said, we need to have an electoral campaign school. We cannot just continue to just vote without any demands or expectations. That it's not working for Black people. And we have to desperately interject revolutionary politics into these campaigns. And I remembered very well that it was his idea, but there was no arm twisting. We were all on board with that. We all agreed that, yes, we wanted to do that. And toward doing that, we put together this 19-point platform for Black self-determination. And I just wanted to say, these are just like an outline of the issues right here. But if you go on the website and you look under like some of our issues, the campaigns, the TAP, you will see the 19-point platform, and we go into detail on that, because each of these points have about a paragraph or so with them. But you can just see what some of them are, elevate and empower Black women, protect Black families, Black community control of the police, free all political prisoners, reparations is on there, but not just reparations for Black people within the United States, but we talk about that Africa, you must, first of all, you need to get out of Africa, but also reparations needs to happen for Africa. You will see that we have Palestine on here, free Palestine. And we also talk about stop interfering with the Latin America and, Africa and some of the other places. So we have a very, very strong international perspective on this. And we say that first of all, we decided that also we would endorse candidates who agreed to support this platform. And it's not like they'll take this issue or they'll take that issue. No, they have to unite around all these issues. They have to agree to endorse those issues. And then once they agree to that, and then we interview them as the Black is Back Coalition, we then make the decision to endorse them. And there have been candidates that we have been proud to endorse. I'll just read a couple of them. Chokwe Lumumba, Brother Jesse Todd from St. Louis, a strong candidate. He was an alderman. Ron Gochez, California, copyright, again out of St. Louis. And Aretha Akile Canyon, who I will be introducing shortly. We are proud to support, to endorse these candidates. But I should also say that there have been times when we've had to withdraw the endorsement. So we're very, very serious about this, and we do expect that when we do endorse these candidates, that they will certainly support our platform, and that they will carry themselves accordingly. Because if we detect any kind of issues with them wanting to endorse our platform or whatever like that, we have withdrawn the endorsement before. And with that, I'm going to now, gives me always great pleasure to introduce um, this next person. And although I am older than she is somebody who inspires me and who I want to be like with every year, with every age that I get. She's one of the people who inspires me greatly. Um, Akile Anai. She, at 20 years old, she took on the International Campaign for Justice for three Black teenage girls drowned by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department that traveled the country on a speaking tour and raised thousands of dollars toward legal fees. At the same time, Akile ran for city council in 2017 alongside her running mate, Jesse Neville, who is the one that they have charged with, he was facing 10 to 15 years in prison, but he was running for mayor and making them the first candidates in the world to run on a platform of reparations to the Black community. This campaign made national news, getting featured in Ebony Magazine, The Washington Post, and the popular radio show, The Breakfast Club. At the height of the campaign season, Akile led a march of over 200 people through the streets of downtown St. Petersburg, demanding a city united through reparations. And since her run, she has been appointed as the Director of Agitation and Propaganda of the African People's Socialist Party, making her the youngest member to sit on the National Central Committee of the African People's Socialist Party. And she is currently the editor-in-chief of the Burning Spear newspaper and has many other media institutions. My pleasure, Sister Akile Anai. Uhuru.
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 Hands off Uhuru.
Hands off Uhuru.
Drop the charges on the Uhuru 3.
Uhuru.
Thank you, Sister Lisa, and for that introduction. And I just really want to salute the Black is Back Coalition for its 15th annual conference, and also acknowledge my leadership, salute my leadership, as well as the chair of the Black is Back Coalition, Chairman Amalia Shatella. As mentioned, my name is Akile Anai, but for the ballot's sake, my name is Erica Akile Kenyon, running for District 7 City Council right here in the city of St. Petersburg, where this event is being hosted right now. And I also want to acknowledge that I have been, with this candidacy, endorsed by the Black is Back Coalition. So, and I just want to say, because as mentioned in earlier presentations about the case of the Uhuru 3, I was initially one of the original unindicted 4. And on the basis of having run for office, participated in the electoral process. And I was asked to for this meeting to discuss my platform, but before getting into that, I just wanted to just to acknowledge that I gained the confidence and the know-how to run for office through the leadership provided by Chairman Amalia Shatella, but also through the Black is Back Coalition, where I attended, along with my running mate at the time, Jesse Neville, the first electoral campaign school hosted by the Black is Back in 2017. And so that's, for somebody who had never had any kind of experience in electoral politics before, it really armed us to be able to take this struggle of our people against gentrification, for reparations, these struggles that we've been engaged in, for decades here in this country, to enter that into the electoral arena. So it was this school, it was the Black is Back, and it was the leadership of the chairman that taught me. And it's important to say that because it just, lays the whole notion of these bogus allegations of Russia to the side. And it shows that this was based on our own conclusions. Our people came up with this strategy, not Russia, not anyone else. And that my participation in this election is a consequence of fierce struggle that Black people have been engaged in for decades to open up democratic space that allows us to achieve greater political and economic power. That space includes the elections. Like the chairman said, Black people, through our fight for freedom in this country, opened up universal suffrage that would go beyond the benefit of Black people. We made the Voting Rights Act necessary through the struggle that we were engaged in. But the US government, through its assault on the Uhuru 3 and the First Amendment, is attempting to use the state to repeal this act, using the FBI, the courts, and the law to deny our people the right not only to vote, but to run for office in such a way that presents an alternative To those we've always been forced forced boxed in to vote for, especially the Democratic Party for African people. And the way, and the status quo itself, an alternative to the status quo, which is what our campaign, My Candidacy, represents even right now. And that this system always attempts to present these forces and the status quo as our only option. So this attack on the Uhuru 3 is part of the historic attempt to crush the existence of any alternative to the normal corruption, repression, and exploitation that the people experience day in and day out. So I'm running now with the slogan, not one step backwards. And I just want to say, we did it first. We said it first, not one step backwards. A part of the Freedom Summer campaign, which is a tradition inside the struggle inside this country led by Black people, the whole concept of Freedom Summer, which was something that was organized around with the electoral process then, and it's part of the campaign, the struggle right now. So Freedom Summer includes, rallying support for and making sure these charges are dropped in Uhuru 3, and also with this election campaign right here in the city of St. Petersburg. So we're calling on you to get to St. Pete, boots on the ground. We're saying to also build for the election of Eric Akile Anai for District 7 City Council. So again, our slogan is not one step backwards, in line with the theme of this conference, despite the bogus accusations by the US government about attempted election interference. So despite the fact that in their indictment and in their raids and in this bogus trial that we have to go through, that the Russians are the ones who told us to run for office. I'm running for office again, and that is just a huge slap in the face too. So we're fighting this on all fronts, and we're gonna take them on in the electoral arena. We're gonna take them on in the courts, and we're taking them on in the streets. So my platform today is near identical to the one we introduced in 2017 and in 2019, just with the addition of the demand to drop the charges on the Uhuru 3. And we're the only candidate that's saying that. This platform in 2019 was defined by the slogan, "Make the South Side Black Again." That was an anti-gentrification demand, and it was inspired by this whole platform by the National Black Political Agenda for Self-Determination put forward by the Black is Back Coalition. So, and I'm just gonna go over these briefly. The first one, the cornerstone of our whole platform is this question of defend freedom of speech and the democratic rights of the people. And it's based off of, again, this obvious assault that's being made on the Uhuru 3, but just the overall assault that's being made on Black people, not just in the city, but throughout this country, who are struggling to participate and access the democratic space that we have fought for. So as has been shown at 6 a.m. on July 29th of 2022, the FBI collaboration with the St. Petersburg Police Department, using taxpayer dollars and local government entities, conducted a 9-hour raid on the Uhuru House right here and personal properties of Uhuru Movement members. And myself, I was tricked out of my residence by the St. Pete Police, who lied and told me that my car had been broken into. And then I was surrounded by dozens of federal agents armed with assault rifles and forced to turn over my cell phone and laptop without knowledge as to why. And simultaneously, the FBI was conducting raids on the personal and organizational properties of the Uhuru Movement, including the Uhuru Movement's founder, Amalia Shatella, in St. Louis, Missouri. And I would learn later that I, as well as the Uhuru 3 chairman, Amali, Penny, and Jesse, was named in an indictment as an unindicted co-conspirator in a plot to sow discord as a part of a Russian malign influence campaign. The US government alleged that I ran for office in 2017 and 2019 on a reparations platform because I was instructed by the Russian government to do so. Similar ridiculous accusations were made towards Amalia Shatella, as well as Penny Hess and Jesse Neville, my former running mate. And 9 months later, in April of 2023, the US government officially indicted the chairman, Penny and Jesse, now known as the Uhuru 3, but their bogus case was immediately falling apart because they were unable to indict the candidate that they said interfered with the elections. So now the Uhuru 3 face trial on September 3rd, 2024 in Tampa federal court, each threatened with 15-year prison sentences. They are not being accused of espionage, extortion, or any heinous crime, but instead are being charged with speaking at conferences, tours, publishing articles, and running for office, all protected under the First Amendment of the US Constitution and the Voting Rights Act. Democracy and free speech is under attack throughout the US, and they are using the trial of the Uhuru 3 as their test case to eliminate free speech for all. This will mean that people cannot criticize or protest the government or express views different from those in positions of power. If the US government is successful in this trial, any individual or organization can be legally raided by the FBI and accused of being an agent of a foreign government for publicly disagreeing with their government. So our campaign believes that democracy is fundamental, that the people's rights to free speech and to the electoral process should not be threatened, and that the FBI and other governmental agencies should not be weaponized against those they deem as political opposition. The Black community inside the US and in St. Pete historically have been the torchbearers of democracy, having faced physical violence from merely standing in lines trying to register to vote, to being assassinated or imprisoned. The role that Black people have played in opening up democratic space for everyone in this country is undeniable. As the chairman said, no one has paid a bigger price for democracy than Black people in this country. We must not allow our government, local and otherwise, to trample over the rights and voices of the people. And so this platform calls for the US government to drop all the charges on the Uhuru 3, that the city of St. Pete must adopt the Dred Scott City of Refuge Sanctuary City Resolution that calls for the city to refuse to collaborate with state entities such as the FBI to assault Black community organizations and activists working for the betterment of their community, and to end the anti-Black, undemocratic rigged election in St. Petersburg. We need a real single-member district election. In St. Pete, the district alone votes for their representatives in the primary, but the entire city votes in the general and can override the decision of that district. This is designed to liquidate the power of the Black vote by granting the majority white city the right to veto the vote of a majority Black district. We want one single-member district election to give power to the Black community to determine its own representatives running on platforms that speak to their genuine interests. So this is a 10-point platform. Number 2 is restoration of economic development for the Black community through reparations. So this was on our platform in 2017 and in 2019, and we assert that reparations are owed to the Black community today. That the Black community in this city makes up 21%, but it is disproportionately impacted by overwhelming conditions of poverty, homelessness, and police containment, with nearly 20,000 people living in the south side of St. Pete struggling below the federal poverty line. Reparations and economic justice for the Black community must be the highest priority. St. Pete cannot call itself a progressive city unless economic justice for the Black community is addressed and resolved. And our reparations plan, the first thing is to turn over the Tropicana field, the 86 acres of land under that dome, back to the Black community as reparations. And so that has been something that we have, again, pushed since our previous campaigns and are pushing now as they attempt to, push Africans out of this city. And then that leads us into point number 3, which is to end the gentrification of the Black community and to create genuine affordable housing. And this was modeled in part after the Uhuru movement's vision for an African village, where the Tropicana field, the 86 acres of land now, where that dome sits, that destroyed a historic Black community, that land could become a hub of culture, housing, and economic development for Black people, and that would increase, the tax base, the economic activity for the entire city. So, and that would also reverse the effects of gentrification. And we also were inspired by Charles Barron's efforts right there in East New York and what he did in reversing the effects of gentrification. And so we, created a similar platform, a point around that. A Black community control of the police is on our platform, to create a people-based budget to improve the quality of life in our city, to build women's health programs to address disparities faced by Black mothers and children, fix the failing education system, for sewage and water bills, which is really a serious issue here. We say tax the developers, not the people. We say workers' power for city workers, and an automatic restoration of voting rights for people with felonies who have been released from incarceration. So that's our 10-point platform. And again, it's the only platform, it's the only campaign like it participating in the elections right now. And I say that on a local level and on a national level. This is the only campaign candidate for any kind of public office that is taking on these critical questions. And that is a model for anybody who's saying they want to represent the people, want to run for office and and we can reject what they throw at us. We can reject the Democratic Party and this fear mongering that they always do, especially to African people. If you don't, vote for me, then you get the other guy as if they're better than the other guy. This is the real alternative, and that's what we represent. And that's why, the US government is attempting to imprison the Uhuru Three today. And this is what they would do to any candidate who attempts to stand on the right side of the question and use the electoral arena to actually advance the genuine interests of the people. So that's why our participation in this election is extremely critical. And I just want to encourage people to go to voteakile.com. You can read the full platform. Our election is August 20th. The primary election is August 20th, and the general election will be in November. And again, it's for District 7 City Council in St. Pete. And I just wanted to, if I have time left, this is also on the voteakile.com website, but I mentioned that one of the things that we would implement is that the city of St. Pete would need to adopt the resolution, the Dred Scott City of Refuge resolution for the city of St. Petersburg. And I just wanted to go through this to really explain, well, first of all, what that is. And the chairman has mentioned, Dred Scott and the case of Dred Scott, throughout the whole campaign, and really brought out, just the reality of this system and how it defined that, that Black people have no rights that white people are bound to respect. And even though they have, on its face, repealed that decision, the fact still remains that the reality is that's what's playing out today. That Black people have no rights in this country that the white man is bound to respect. And so this resolution came, with this understanding after the raids against the Uhuru movement. So it says, whereas Dred and Harriet Scott sought and were denied refuge from enslavement in the city of St. Louis, Missouri in 1846, and were told they had no rights any white man had to respect, whereas the cities of St. Louis, Missouri and St. Petersburg, Florida, allowed their police departments to work together with the FBI to conduct unjust, violent, military-style raids on homes and offices of the African People's Socialist Party and Uhuru movement on July 29, 2022. Whereas historically, there are countless examples of city governments covertly and overtly collaborating with federal agencies to attack African community leaders, such as Fred Hampton, who was assassinated in Chicago, Illinois in 1969 by the FBI and Chicago police. Whereas the July 29th FBI raids on the Uhuru movement militarily occupied the most impoverished neighborhoods of St. Louis and St. Petersburg, threatening Uhuru movement programs fighting gentrification and building economic and political power in the Black working class communities. Whereas in St. Petersburg, Florida in 1914, John Evans, an African man, was lynched by a mob of 1,500 white men, women, and children. Whereas Chairman Mali Yeshitela was imprisoned for tearing down a white nationalist mural with a humiliating and racist depiction of African people from the St. Petersburg City Hall building. Whereas the African People's Socialist Party was targeted because it has relentlessly fought for the liberation of Africa and African people for the past 50 years. Whereas the FBI raids on the Uhuru movement posed a threat to the African community's hard-won democratic right to participate in the elections in their own interests. Whereas African people have a right to petition the United Nations to investigate the Genocide Convention as it applies to the conditions of African people in the US and the original sin of slavery and colonialism in this country. Whereas African people have the right to freedom of speech, association, and assembly, including public statements of dissent regarding the official position of the US on the Russia-Ukraine war. Whereas cities all over the US have consciously attacked and destroyed African communities over the years in order to promote business and prosperity for others through, quote, urban renewal and gentrification. Whereas the city of St. Pete destroyed the gas plant district, the 22nd Street Business District, and increasingly the Jordan Park housing community for the development and expansion of downtown St. Pete at the expense of the Black community. Whereas in 1996, more than 300 militarily armed police attacked the Uhuru House in St. Petersburg, Florida, with airplanes and helicopters, pumping the entire reserves of tear gas in the city into the Uhuru House, where a mass meeting was going on with the intent to assassinate leaders of the Uhuru movement and members of the community following the police murder of an 18-year-old Tyron Lewis. Whereas the brutal conditions faced by African people in the US continue today, with 1 in 3 African men born in the year 2000 being imprisoned in his lifetime. Whereas in the United States, which has among the highest rates of maternal mortality in industrialized countries, African women die during childbirth at a rate 3 times higher than that of a white woman, and in some states up to 7 times higher. Whereas the average white family has 8 times the wealth of the average African family, whereas millions of African people in the 1960s struggling for basic human rights and economic and political power over their lives faced the effects of COINTELPRO, of the FBI, which carried out assassinations, political imprisonment, slander, and harm, whereas Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, along with W.E.B. Du Bois, James Baldwin, Aretha Franklin, Sam Cooke, and others, were targeted, threatened, surveilled, and or assassinated by the FBI with the complicity of the local police departments. Whereas FBI files on the murder of Ferguson activist Darren Seals following the police murder of Michael Brown in St. Louis, suburb of Ferguson, Missouri in 2014, and others revealed that the local police worked with the FBI to target and many say murder him, whereas African people have resisted colonial oppression and violence imposed on them and have exercised their human rights to freedom of speech, assembly, and association in the upliftment of the Black community. Therefore, be it resolved that the city of St. Petersburg will be a sanctuary city in which the St. Petersburg Police Department and city government will refuse to cooperate with the FBI and any federal agency to attack Black community organizers and members for activities related to working for the betterment and upliftment of their community. St. Petersburg will become a city of refuge for African people struggling for social justice in solidarity with sanctuary programs for Indigenous, Mexican people, immigrants, and others seeking a safe haven to uplift their communities. Therefore, this resolution repudiates the denial of refuge for Dred and Harriet Scott and the ongoing notion that Black people have no rights, which the white man is bound to respect. This resolution vindicates the blood-drenched struggles of African people for the democratic right to vote, to create self-determination programs, to dissent against injustice, to exercise our right to freedom of speech and political assembly, and to take our views before the United Nations. This is what we will put forward when we're elected to District 7 City Council in St. Petersburg, Florida. Thank you all so much, and salute again to the Black Coalition.
Uhuru, Uhuru, Sister Akile, thank you so very, very much for that powerful presentation. I want to move to Florida to vote for you, but if the government's watching, that's a joke, because I know I can't do that, because I'm coming back to New Jersey to vote for people there too, so that's a little joke. But I really do wish I could vote for you. Next, we have received a request for an endorsement, and this is from a person who is running for U.S. Senator for the state of New Jersey. She is running on the Green Party team, and she did come to the Black People's March on the White House that we had November 4th last year, and that's the first time I met her. And I just want to say that I did not tell her to seek the endorsement of the Black is Back Coalition. I want that to be understood, because I don't approach people about whether they want the endorsement or not. I want people to want it. I want them to know about the Black is Back Coalition and to say, I want to seek out their endorsement. And I also don't ever want to put somebody in a position of making them feel awkward if they might not be ready to get on board with what the Black is Back Coalition is about. So I just want to be clear about that. I never approach people about the endorsement. I want them to want it for us. And with that, the way this process will work, Sister Christina, you will have 10 minutes to present to us, to present your platform and what you're about. And then we will be able, the steering committee members only will then get 10 minutes to ask you questions, to have you interview. And this gives you still a platform for people to know what you're about, for people in New Jersey to know what you're about, but people, all over. Because if you are elected, to the United States Senate, your votes and your decision making will also affect people, not just in New Jersey. So, Sister Christina Khalil, welcome.
Hi. Oh, I can't turn my camera on.
Is it because you don't have the permission to turn it on?
Wait. Okay, now I got it. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Christina Khalil. I guess I'll just say I'm a first generation Egyptian. I grew up in foster care, which is a very big part of my identity, because I, was exposed to a lot, and different communities are part of me. And when I met Lisa Davis, and when I went to the trip on the bus in November and met the Uhuru 3, Omali really, I was listening to his speech, and I personally can't get into it because it's still like a lot of trauma to me. But what the Uhuru 3 is going through is what I personally went through myself, but I didn't have the support. And for them to give him and make up accusations and to put him at risk and the other three in prison for 15, 20 years, it's horrible because I know what that does, because I was facing a very long time in prison for things I never committed. And I was shocked and that's when my eyes opened many years ago when I learned in the United States of no one's free in this country. And this is a country that I grew up in, and you could be charged with federal charges, held accountable, and really for crimes that have never been committed. They could make up anything because they just don't like you for whatever reason and why they're targeting you. And I've also have experience. I'm a social worker, and I worked frontline at the COVID epidemic. And there are people that are lost in the prison system. And when I say lost in the prison system, they'll have their release date, but they're not released, and family members can't find them. And having foster kids, because I was a foster kid, and there were times where I could have gone missing, getting kidnapped and missing, and then being reported, especially when it comes to people of color, that we're just told we're runaways. We aren't really considered human beings, and we're just not searched for, and we're left in the dust. And it's just, so all of this, I did my research, and I decided to do this way before 2020, 2018, 2019. I worked, and I managed grants, and I worked, and I did policy writing, and I was starting to get involved politically. And I'm exhausted with what we're all facing. And in order to make the change, I truly believe we have to cut the line, because if I go the other routes, and I say, well, let me do this level, and then let me work my way up. You have to make the backdoor deals. You have to, get in good favors. But when you cut the line, you work for the people. And that's why I'm running for US Senate and not any other position. I want to be in charge of the budget, and I don't want to just help New Jersey, which is very close to my heart. I want to help every struggling person across the entire country. And I'm also I support and I believe in the 19 principal points of the Black is Back coalition, because it does mimic a lot of what I truly believe in my campaign. And I'm the only US Senate candidate, and just the only person right now in New Jersey. I don't know if any other candidates are doing this across the country. I'm the only one that wants to amend the 13th Amendment, because I truly believe everything is tied to the 13th Amendment. And that's just been a fight that I've just been doing. And I want to just grow, and I want to make sure we could get the changes. I also want to make sure that we stop and I spoke to Lisa about this, the discrimination and racism when it comes to the foster care system, because we should be working on keeping families together, and we shouldn't be working on, like, for example, someone that I'm working with, because I work in the field, she is a person of color, and domestic violence, she calls the police, and keep in mind, she's a victim. And DCPMP came and said, if you call the police again, we're removing your kids. The ex does not live with her or the kids. He came in under the influence, broke down the door, and it was a very violent and dangerous situation. She called the police, and they threatened to take a victim's children away. So we need to have people that are speaking up for this, and we need to have people who understand the reality of everything that's happening and how this is all interconnected, and we need to stop the oppression. And it has to start, and I love the organization, but we also need people from the top challenging other people that are abusing their power. And that is why I'm running for multiple different reasons.
My mouse is acting up on me. I'm trying to open up my camera. Thank you so very, very much for your presentation. I will open it up for Q&A. Do we have any questions coming from the come from the steering committee who are present?
Yes. Christine.
Yes, sir.
I hear a lot of surface things that you're speaking on, but I don't hear anything defined. My question for you is, due to the fact that the suffrage that you claim that you've gone through as a foster child from Egypt, right? And me being an African in America, facing terrorism every day, all day, facing the depravity, watching my children being snatched from their mothers. What basic platform are you measuring out something substantial? I heard all the surface stuff that would basically do the fight under our 19-point platform. You said you read that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you define how you will fight with the just cause of similar to what I heard from Akile Anai, not being I don't need you to be a chameleon. I need you to come from your true point. And how hard would you fight for Africans who are slaves, for the Uhuru 3 who are facing 10 to 15 years? These are the things we face daily. You said you've gone through some harsh times. I don't doubt that. But I don't hear, and I'll say this, I don't hear the genuineness that I need to hear from you. Would you explain that, please?
Yeah. So talking about my upbringing, and I'm working on that because a lot of people have said to keep my life separate when it comes to politics. And this is something that I have to, again, I have to work on, but I fight hard every day. One of the things I guess the best way to explain it, and I'll say if standing up for justice means standing alone and nobody is standing next to me, and I've done it many times before, I stand alone. And I have spoken about uncomfortable conversations. I have stood against judges and said that they were wrong all by myself. And if that meant going into contempt of court, that meant I was going to jail. And I understand being helpless and voiceless, and I want to be that voice for the communities, the Palestinians, and I read the comment, the colonized people in this country. I want to free Congo. I want to uplift, and I want other people. I don't want anyone to experience pain or suffering that I've gone through. I don't want anyone to have to, because I'm in an interracial relationship. I'm going to be having a Black Egyptian child. My sister-in-law is pregnant, and we're terrified that because we understand the mortality rate of Black women in this country, we're all trying to research hospitals. We want her to be close to us. We all want to be there hands-on, because we want to make sure she gets the proper care. And it's the constant living in fear of what ifs, that nobody is safe. I just want everyone to just go outside and just pretty much exist, because my boyfriend got a car. He wanted a very nice car and he deserved it. And I literally said to him, and it broke my heart, I said, maybe you shouldn't get the WRX, it's a freaking Subaru. I'm like, because we have to think about it. Like, what if the cops pull you over and shoot you? And it's like having this hard conversations about somebody that you love. And it's like thinking about the future of my kids and thinking about the future of all these other kids. And then what Omali's going through, it's reliving what I went through, because I was facing 40 years. And it was terrifying. All because I disagreed. So the fight is real. The emotions are genuine. And the fear of having my loved ones and the people I care about. It's there, and I know I'm a fighter. I don't back down. I don't agree with people when I feel like it's out of line, and I always ask for opinions and I get other people's inputs because maybe I'm overthinking, or maybe, maybe this is, not a good thing to do. So I always, if I feel like I need a second chance, and I always am open to feedback and constructive criticism, and I don't personalize it because this is about growing. But I'm tired of the hashtags. I'm tired of all this stuff happening. I'm tired of, like, I'm leaving my line of work because I can't handle people being lost in the prison system. I can't handle seeing missing foster kids on the news anymore. And this is the only way for me to change it, is to run, because I can't do it anymore.
I want to thank you, Comrade Christina. And I had read some things about you before now. I had hoped we would have had this discussion earlier in one of the other meetings that we had from the steering committee of the Black is Back Coalition. I hope we would have been able to have this discussion with you. I was impressed by some things that I had read about your history and the kind of things that you had endured, and what appeared to be lessons that you were learning about oppressed peoples, and how that seems to have influenced your decision to run for office and to look for the endorsement of the coalition. And we didn't have an opportunity to deal with this earlier because a member of the coalition steering committee, the leader of a member organization of the coalition, was running for this office on the Democratic Party platform. Personally, I felt closer, this is my observation, to what I had read about you and your stance, and saw your stance around certain questions, including open stance and solidarity support with the struggle to defeat Uhuru, the stance that I saw you taking around the Palestinian issue, the fact that you were able to come out on November 4th was something influential to me too, because you didn't just come out, you came out in opposition to what the opportunist white left was trying to do, to bury the struggle for African liberation, and try to cause splits between the African community, African people, and Palestinian people. So I was impressed by that personally. And but we never had this discussion in the steering committee. And I think, I don't know if anybody else in the steering committee was that familiar with you as much as what I've just expressed. But I do want to say we're going to give this a fair hearing. We're going to discuss this, and for what it's worth, from what I know and have seen about you and your stance, I found it impressive. I don't know if there's anybody else from the steering committee who would want to raise anything with Comrade Christina. Oh, Sister Belinda. Okay, I didn't see you, Sister Belinda.
Okay.
If I had,
I'm
Sister
here,
Belinda.
Chairman. Yeah, you just answered my question. That was my concern, if she had engaged or involved herself with any movement opportunities. So you answered my question. I'm very pleased with her presentation. I also would like to say that her being a victim and wanting to get involved is just absolutely phenomenal, because those are the people, that's why I do what I do, and am who I am, because of me being a victim of injustice in our criminal justice system. So I do appreciate you, Christina, and Chairman answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry for crying.
No, that's
That's why I don't try.
No worries.
Yeah, that's why I try to
No
keep everything
worries.
surface, because it gets emotional.
No worries. This is an emotional roller coaster at some point in time, but the fight is in you.
Right. And I would like to ask a couple of questions if none of the other steering committee members have any questions to ask.
One more thing, Sister Lisa, I wanted to ask her. She said that she's the only one that's so there is an opponent, but she's the only one that's running against that individual.
I'm the only one running in New Jersey that I'm aware of that wants to amend the 13th Amendment, because of all the research and everything I've done, everything is tied to the 13th Amendment and everyone I've spoken to. So I feel like amending it will stop the mass incarceration, and we could do other ways too. There's multiple layers on how to tackle it, but amending it will stop the privatized prison, mass incarceration, and a whole bunch of things, and we'll be able to close private prisons, ICE detention centers. It would stop a lot of issues, and it would force people, the government, to actually work for the oppressed community.
Absolutely. I certainly agree with that. We have a bill on the table here in Louisiana to deal with the 13th Amendment too as well. So we can definitely do some follow-up with that. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to ask you a couple of quick questions, and
yes, ma'am.
Some things that you have on your platform, the issue of reparations.
Yes.
Because I know you took a position on that. And I also just want to say that in New Jersey, at least among the Andy Kim, I think, has a Democratic nomination. I'm not sure who has a Republican nomination for the United States Senate, but I believe she is the only one who's come out and spoken out against the genocide that's currently happening in Palestine. I don't think there's any other.
And Congo.
Yeah, and the Congo. I don't think there's any other candidates that spoke out against that. So I want to say that. But reparations, because that's a very important issue. I wanted to hear more about what you would do on the issue of reparations. And there's also a couple of other things on your platform that you reference, like immigration reform, police brutality, and the housing crises. So I know that's like a lot. You can't really answer in 2 minutes, but you can give it your best shot.
Yeah. Okay, so for reparations, I want to get Black leaders within different communities, and not people who are elected, not people like Cory Booker or Baraka, but real leaders like Omali and you, and have people sitting at the table and tell me what reparations, and gather the research, because we don't need to do any more research when it comes to how much is owed. The money and the amounts and the data is there. It's just enacting it and then saying, okay, I'm going to write this bill. We're going to present it. I'm sure it's going to get shut down. How do we organize a protest? How do we challenge them? What is plan A, plan B, getting all the way through Z? How do we make this happen? And really engaging in planning and organizing, because we're going to get pushed back, and and I want this to pass. I don't want this to fail, because in order to make any changes in this country, we have to start with the most oppressed people. We have to start with the Black community. We have to start with the people who have been harmed the most, and then everything else will fall into place. That is the way we move forward as a country, is by making amends and taking accountability, and by facing our past.
Oh, okay. Now, you also had something about immigration and the housing crisis.
Yes. So when it comes to immigration, revamping the entire system from the beginning, adding more employment, when it comes to more community members, hiring more people within the community to help and get to know their neighbors, to help when it comes to applying for immigration, making the process much more realistic, better screenings, better understanding, family reunification, finding the missing kids. I know slavery exists still in the United States. One of the biggest things that they're doing is they're kidnapping these kids, the missing kids that are coming from the ICE detention centers and then putting them on agriculture farms. And there have been documentations and a whole bunch of information put out for years, and no one does anything on it about it at all on a federal level or state level. That these kids are working on farms, they're working in slaughterhouses, there are accidents, and then they dismiss them like they're nothing. We want to hold people accountable, but we also want to make sure that these kids are safe, that they're enrolled in school, that they're with their families, that no kids are being traumatized and no parent is being traumatized, that everyone is treated as a human being. And we're going to remove the ICE detention centers, turn that funding, because it's about, I want to say it's over $100 billion that they're investing in these ICE detention centers now. I have to look at the numbers because I know it increased. And I don't know if I'm getting millions and billions confused. So I would have to look at that later, but reinvesting that money into humanitarian, because we didn't create the earth, so we can't really determine. The borders are imaginary, it's all construct, but we want to make the process much easier, much more doable, and much more safer. And in the reality, it's American citizens. If you look up the arrest records when it comes to ICE, it's over 80% of American citizens that are bringing in the drugs and fentanyl. It's not illegal immigrants, and they're the ones that are being hurt. So just, and then when it comes to also, I think affordable housing, redesigning the Faircloth Act, when I did my research, it was what federally put into place, and it prevented zoning from expanding, which means all the Section 8 houses and all the affordable housing, they tore it down. You could only build up in what was already zoned and what's already there. They gave permission to redesign that, but also putting caps on, well, amending that, but also putting caps on rent, challenging the banks, making the banks make, because if you could pay rent for like 2-3 years and you're paying already $2,000 in rent, why can't you pay for a mortgage? Redesign the entire mortgage process, the housing buying process, make sure everyone's able to afford a place to live. And if people need a boost, because we do have people who are houseless, people who are struggling, people that do hit low points, giving them a humanitarian approach and uplifting them. We don't want to knock people who have already been knocked down. We want to help give them the proper structure and support that they need. And then we want to also transfer them into, if they are able to work, unless they have a disability. And then what was the last question?
Something, I was just given signal. I think we are at time, but
oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah. But I think you covered the issues that I raised. Oh, restart my video. Huh. I think you covered the issues that I raised that was on your platform. So I just want to say thank you so very much. I didn't know if the chairman had anything else he wanted to say to conclude this, but I do know that we normally, like I said, after we have the interview, then normally the steering committee, we vote, we take the vote about endorsing, and so I didn't know, Chair.
When is the election?
Yeah,
November 5th, I think.
Yeah, now next meeting, the steering committee, next meeting, we'll discuss this and make some kind of a determination. But I just wanted to say that in addition to everything else, first of all, she's the only candidate in Pennsylvania, in New Jersey, that has said hands off Uhuru and supports the case that so much of what we about dealing with revolves around that fighting for the democratic rights of free speech, the assault that's being made against everybody through this attack on the Uhuru 3. So, secondly, she is running as a Green Party candidate, and the Green Party was sectors of it anyway, right out of the gate in support of the Uhuru 3. Opposed to what the FBI has done and is doing to us and the attempt that it's making on the people through this assault. And there are sectors of the Green Party, some perhaps more than others, but we've been in Green Party forums and things like that where we've got tremendous support. And the Green Party has also come out for support of reparations, which is something that's on her platform as well. So I just wanted to make that acknowledgement, and really glad to see this movement toward endorsement by the Black is Back Coalition for social justice, peace, and reparations. And thank Comrade Akile Anai for coming before the steering committee for the Black is Back Coalition overall. Thank you so much, Uhuru.
Uhuru. And I also just want to say that she did come to the recent organizing meeting that we had in North, and that was the one where you participated virtually, Chairman. And I do know that she's one of the strongest candidates that I know that takes a strong anti-war position as well. And like I said, most of the candidates, I mean, the person who was running for the New Jersey State Senate with the Democrats did not get the nomination, because I know that person had also taken a stance against what was going on in Palestine and what was being done to the Palestinians. But he's not running, and she's the only, I don't think there are any other candidates taking that stance at all. Like you said, Chairman, none of the other candidates at all mentioned the Uhuru movement. And I also just have to say that there are strong people in the Green Party who came out immediately. Barry Bender is one of them. Immediately when this happened with the Uhuru movement was there. They were there. So I just have to say that.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And Uhuru, Christina, thank you so very much. We will definitely be in touch with you.
Uhuru, Sister Lisa, can you let everybody know that she did put her link in the chat for additional information?
Yeah, her link is in the chat for additional information. Uhuru, and thank you. I get so caught up sometimes in these presentations, and I forget I'm also moderating.
And if anyone has any questions about anything, feel free to reach out to me. And we do respond. Well, I do respond to the emails within like 24 to 48 hours.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you can put your contact information or your email address in the chat for me
as well.
I could.
And again, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so very much. And my co-moderator, I'm going to turn it over to you right now. My co-moderator, Brother Saero. Right, Brother
Uhuru. I just want to say that I tried that link of Christina's, and it seems like they're not allowing me, the system itself, to get to your link, but I'll try it again later on, again for further research. Uhuru.
And the Zoom, because I put the link in, but Zoom don't act right all the time. But anyway.
Bad actor, Zoom. Bad actor.
Bad actors. But Brother Saero,
for me. It's working for me.
Oh, well.
It's the one you sent, Lisa.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
It's the link that you put in the chat is working for me.
Oh, okay. Oh no, it's not what. I don't know what's going on because it's saying having trouble finding that link. So I just say that to say that maybe I put it in incorrectly or something.
There was a typo in the first one.
And what I put in?
Whichever one, but I just put in the correct version.
Okay.
Uhuru.
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 All right, if we could just make sure that Christina's email is in the chat and people can email her directly if they have any problems. Can we bring up our next presenter, please?
Right, Brother Saero, it's on you. We're going right to
I'm Howard.
No, the Education Working Group, so it's on you.
The Education Working Group.
Yes. It's
okay, this will be this Education Working Group. You probably heard the bio once before, but it's also a bio that's so important because Comrade Sister Betty Davis, who is an educator, who has been a fighter since the 60s for the teachers union and such, and who was also the partner to our comrade who has moved on and continues his work. That would be what's happening with comrade Sister Betty Davis. She is so astronomical in her volumes of work for people, for humanity. She thrust forward despite any opposition. And I could never speak of any greater leadership than what I've seen and worked with comrade Sister Betty Davis. You've heard her bio today. I want to introduce her now. She is to the right to free education through postgraduate level and has begun to develop a core group. This will be the Education Working Group. And Sister Betty Davis, you have the floor. Uhuru!
Uhuru, can I be heard?
Yes.
All right, I want to thank you, Brother Seattle and Comrade Lisa Davis, and to the entire Black is Back Coalition. And I want to give a salute to the warrior that we are all standing behind. And by that person, I mean none other than Chairman Omali Yeshitela. You have been, for the last 2 days, discussing the issue of free speech. And I think one of the members of the education group, working group that presented this morning has made it clear to you that free speech, as humans, if we do not have the right to free speech, it means we do not have the right to self-determination, to self-defense, and to self-actualization. And so what in effect the state has said in so many different forms of attack on the struggle of Africans to be free in this country is that we will never be able to develop to our maximum as human beings on this earth as long as the state is in charge and control of our communities. And so for those of us in the education working group, we, and by we I mean my comrade who transitioned, Ralph Pointer, have been struggling, as Brother Seattle and Sister Lisa made you aware, for some time now. The struggle grew out of the 1960 struggle for community control of public education. But as many of you who have been on this call and on this Zoom know, we know our history. And what is so dangerous about the attack on Chairman Yeshitela is that he doesn't just speak truth to power and analyze what's happening in our lives in terms of our right to be free every time he speaks. It is that he is grounded in the science of history and the science of struggle and the science of socialism. And as a person who has founded the African People's Socialist Party, his theory goes beyond Marxism, because Marxism never really addressed the issue of self-determination and colonialism within the context of the attack of those people known as Europeans upon Africa in terms of developing capitalism. As Chairman Yeshitela makes it clear, we were the mode of production for them to develop their capitalism. The whole concept of what is going on in Gaza is an example of colonialism on steroids and imperialism out of control. It is the same thing that happened to the First Nation people on this continent. And I want to remind you that Ward Churchill was penalized heavily when in a conference that included the Palestinians, he warned them to be careful because the map of their country was beginning to look like the map of the people who are known as the First Nation people on this continent in terms of them being disappeared. And shortly after that, Ward Churchill was removed from his professorial position. When we talk about free speech, One of the part of our mission statement in the education working group is that our mission is to abolish miseducation. Now, while we started out saying we wanted to abolish miseducation in New York City and the Central Board of Education, and the other piece that's so important here is that through the works of the African People's Socialist Party and the coalition, the Black is Back coalition, we were able to have self-determination and self-expression and freedom of speech to spread the concept that we are organized on principles that abolished slavery over 100 years ago. We understand that miseducation equals the new slavery. And so when we talk about the education working group, we focus on people who are on the front lines of the struggle in the classroom. And while I recognize many of my comrades on this call are dedicated to charter schools because you want to rescue your babies, cats don't educate mice, they do eat them. So we understand that you don't want to risk your children in the hands of enslavers, because as the terrible Negro college phrase goes, a mind is a terrible thing to waste and to lose. But what we are saying to you is the majority of our children in the United States of America are in the public school system. I might also add the majority of the children in the European American public school system are in control of their public schools. They have far fewer charter schools than we do, and there is a reason for that. The public school budget is one of the largest budgets in the United States. And that is why the corporations are going after it within the Black community. It is the same as the subprime loan scam, which was the largest transference of wealth from one group of people to another in the history of this country in 200 years. That came from Glenn Ford in the Black Agenda Report. The public school budget is what the corporations want. But in the process of getting that public school budget in the major cities where Africans are a majority of the public school system, there is mayoral control. That mayoral control is the conduit to transfer our public school system to corporations, which is what the charter schools are in our communities. And where you have charter schools that are not under the control of the corporations in our communities, those charter schools are struggling just as much as the public school system for their funds. They get the same treatment in the colony as they would if they were under the control of the public school system of the state. That being the case, since the majority of your tax monies come back to you in the forms of goods and services in your community, it is your duty to struggle to preserve the public school system. It is our duty not to abandon the students in our public school system whose parents cannot come out and fight for them the way we are fighting in the Black is Back coalition. So when you look at our determination that education is a human right, when you say that we stand in solidarity with a worldwide anti-imperialist resistance, the struggle for public education is a part of that. One of the major struggles we have, one of the major tenets of the Education Working Group is that we insist on the right for you in your community, regardless of whether you have a child in that school or not, that is closest to you, that you have the right to review your local school district's budget proposal. Proposals are usually posted on the district website and are available in the schools. You heard our comrade Jeremy Eugene discuss this morning how they're using the testing rubric to deny freedom of speech and expression to the Africans in the public school system. First, they took out music and said, oh, they're not reading on test score grade level. Then they took out sports and said, oh, they're not reading on test score grade level. We can't take but so much time for extracurricular sports. We can't take but so much time for extracurricular performances in the area of music. So here are two areas where most children in the United States have the right to be self-expressed and have free speech and creating and showing their talents and their skills. Now they're coming and saying, you can't have a curriculum that reflects your culture and your history because you have to pass the test. And the test does not reflect who you are as a human being. The test reflects what, as someone on this panel that we're having today said, is to prepare you as a worker. I believe it was Brother Diop said that originally the purpose of the public school system as created and controlled by the Europeans was to create and control factory workers. Well, I have nothing against people working in the factories. I think all of us on this call understand that the whole purpose of Black is Back and the African People's Socialist Party is to make sure that Africans have the right to be self-expressed as human beings. And this is the antithesis of slavery. And so the Education Working Group advocates that you have the right to think, that you have the right to an education that tells your history. And what is happening in the public school systems across the United States is that a teacher who wants to have that freedom of speech is harassed, is hounded, is written up and created to a person that has to choose between attacking a child's mind and having a livelihood. And this is why Brother Jeremy's testimony to you was so important. There are other members of the Education Working Group who have experienced the same harassment. And what I am saying to the community that I hope is listening on this call, just as we unify with the chairman in this struggle against their attempt to incarcerate this genius for 15 years in a death camp, we will not allow the United States to incarcerate our children in a mental death camp. This is what the Education Working Group stands for. If you live in a major city in America, the hands of the statistics of the youth in our public school system who are killed by the army of occupation every 28 hours is parallel. It is the same. What happened to Sister Massey can happen, and I believe Sister Lisa says has already happened again in New Jersey. After all these 2 years of marching saying Black Lives Matter, the statistics on police assassination of our youth has not stopped. It is our duty within the public school system to create a curriculum that gives them the courage to understand that they are obligated as humans to struggle and fight for their freedom. They need a liberation theology in the classroom, and that is the role of our community to do this. This is what community control of public education means. But because this is a capitalist country, if you do not engage in the struggle to control the education budget in your district, then you are falling down on the job. When the community insists on its rights to attend a PTA meeting, regardless of whether or not they are a parent in that school, when this community insists on volunteering and creating programs that are relevant for their children in the public school system, this is how you checkmate a governor, such as the governor in Texas that attempted to arrest and fire Jeremy. And this pattern is what we used in New York City. I received my pension because the community in which we lived was self-expressed and made it clear to the superintendent that if she gave me a letter for my file that ended up in me being removed as a supervisor in their district today, they would give her a letter that had her removed the very next day. And they meant it. She knew they meant it. And therefore, to this day, I still have my pension. And it is this pension that I use to support the Black is Back Coalition. So when we fight, we win. And if we do not defend Chairman Yeshatella's right to speak about the oppression that we suffer as teachers, as doctors, as lawyers, we need to have, as part of Lisa's healthcare working group, some of the doctors to testify the same type of lack of freedom expression that we experience as professionals in the classroom, they are experiencing in the healthcare area. So when she tells you about, and I hope you will listen carefully, when she brings up the nuances of struggle in her political action working group, we need to be struggling in every aspect of our lives in a capitalist, imperialist country. I want to conclude. How much time do I have?
You got roughly, go ahead, Comrade Kige. Kige? I thought we were speaking at the same time.
3 minutes. 3
How much?
minutes.
Thank you. One of the things that Chairman Yeshitela Omali is being accused of is talking about oppression and the political ramifications of oppression within the socialist context of our language. They are not angry with him because he is a socialist. They're not angry with him because he criticizes the United States of America's imperialist control, attempted controlling the world. They are angry with him, and they are determined to destroy his right to free speech because he is talking about it as an African in his colony. And when you look at the way NATO has lined up with the Ukraine against Russia, which is the only country that never had African slavery in their land, you can understand why the Europeans might not want him to talk about the context of racism. Sorry, not racism, the context of imperialism and colonialism on a local level. When people begin to connect the dots that the right to free speech, it is not only a right to say what the problem is. The right to free speech is to do what the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru people did in St. Louis. They not only created physical structures, they created institutions that allowed the people to be self-expressed. Free speech is not just words. Free speech is action. And Uhuru and African People's Socialist Party have created institutions that allow the people to be self-expressed. To be self-expressed is to save your babies so that the 15 kindergarten classes that would have existed if it had not been for the death rate of our infant mortality in this country, those classrooms would have existed. That is free speech. First you say it, then you plan it, then you do it. That is what it means to let resistance be your motto. And that is why they're going after the chairman. It is never a question of speech. It is praxis, Praxis, where you practice what you speak. Thank you.
Uhuru! Uhuru! Comrade Sister Betty Davis, you bad. I'm gonna
Boom.
boom. I have to bring this individual up, in which we all know is Comrade Sister Lisa Davis, a buzzsaw of revolutionary spirit. Lisa Davis is a longtime community activist in New Jersey who has been passionately committed to the Black liberation struggle for over 30 years. She started out at the age of 19 in 1979, being the youngest person ever elected to serve on the Democratic County Committee. in her hometown, Democratic, right? But soon found a stronger and truer voice in the grassroots movement. That's what I'm saying. Of the people's struggles, and has made a conscientious choice to stand with the people ever since. She is the vice chair of the Black is Back Coalition and chair of its healthcare working group, which is tasked with the mission of establishing an advocacy network of revolutionary people who are involved in healthcare, be it naturopathic or allopathic, and who are committed to challenging the paradigm of this current racist for-profit medical system. I might also add that she is also the chair of the Political Action Working Group. And this is Comrade Lisa Davis. Uhuru!
Uhuru! Oh, you know I'm going to be editing that bio because I'm only going to begin to acknowledge this thing going back 20 years, no more than that. I'm putting a cap on that. But anyway, thank you so much, Brother Sayaro. And yes, I'm now working with the Political Action Working Group. And the Political Action Working Group, that was actually one of the working groups that I think we had talked about developing a while ago, but it's starting to really be reinstituted, so to say. And so basically the purpose of the Political Action Working Group is really to sort of keep our pulse on the ground in terms of what's happening in our communities and making sure that the Black is Back Coalition can lend our support when needed, and even organize around planning things of that nature. We definitely want on this working group, we definitely want other coalition members, organizational members. I mean, we want everybody, of course, to be on it, but having other coalition organization members will also help us to keep abreast of the things that are going on within their organizations as well. So we want to be able to talk about the various things that like WAPO and the Black Alliance for Peace are doing, and Joko Collective. A lot of times so many things are going on, we're not able to keep abreast so much, but having the Political Action Working Group, and we can get together and meet at least monthly, we can discuss these things. And so we really hope that we can get as many members from the other coalition organizations as well, in addition to individual members. We did have our first major meeting. Brother Sayaro, I'm happy to say, is the vice chair, and he's going to be joining me with this presentation and say a few words because he's also with the Political Education Working Group. And we had Sister Betty, we had representation from Zaki Barudi's group, United. We had representation from that group. I know Sister Belinda Parker-Brown, also Louisiana United, wants to participate too. So we want to make sure that we have participation. And like I said, our goal is to have our pulse, have our hands on what is going on locally in the communities for people. Like one of the things that we did participate in was Netflix did a horrible attack on the the Black community, on our culture, with them producing Good Times Reboot. Well, CMOCAP, which stands for the Committee to Investigate Media Offensive to African People, took that on immediately. And we had the chance to participate. And I was very, very happy to learn that Brother Akile Anai, that the organization he's with, also took a stance against that. So I'm trying to make sure that he and Brother Dr. McIntosh of CMOCAP, that they are connected. His organization wrote a very powerful article, really great article, about their support for the call to cancel Netflix. And so these are the kind of things we want to keep abreast of. Just a real quick things that just popped up like anything that we can certainly deal with. Somebody that I knew of was put out of their apartment, an illegal eviction. It should have never happened. But I was glad to be able to be there and to say, we'll come and support whatever that we can do. And certainly the Political Action Working Group agreed that we have to get a letter out to the judge, to the landlord, corporate landlord, and challenge what was going on, in addition to the mayor as well, to say, how can this happen in your city, Black city of East Orange, New Jersey? So that's one of the things that we agreed to take on. Also, I just want to say that when Sister Belinda Brown was talking, and I have been vocal about this, they're coming after me as well in South Orange, New Jersey, because I attended a pro-Palestinian vigil that these people in the suburbs had been organizing, these weekly vigils. I try to attend them all the time. In fact, they might be having one right now. They're doing it. I want to give them a shout out, to Soma in New Jersey to support their weekly vigils, showing support for the Palestinian people. But they've been doing that. I didn't organize that. I'm glad I didn't organize it. I'm glad I didn't have to, but I support it and I participate in it. But the long story short, on one Sunday, an unhinged Zionist approached us yelling and screaming, and he eventually gets in my face, and they're coming after me about that. And they're saying that I organized this protest without a permit. I organized a special event without a permit. They completely made it up. And then in their police report, they acknowledged that you don't need a permit to march in South Orange. So I have a court date coming up, a trial this Friday, August 16th. I put in the chat, we have a petition going around. I put in the chat, the petition is tinyurl.com/BIB Lisa Davis. Again, tinyurl.com/BIB Lisa Davis. Please sign that. I'll be putting up more information about that, but the court date is Friday, the 16th. But again, these are the kind of things we want to keep on. We want to keep abreast of. We want to also support Sister Belinda Parker-Brown. We've been supporting the Hands Off Uhuru Coalition, of course, but there are other cases going on. So this is just some of what the political action working group can be and can grow into. And of course, we want feedback and ideas from everybody within the coalition. And Brother Sayero, I would like to bring you up now. Somebody keeping track of our time, by the way. And you can, what do we got, about 7 more minutes left or 5 more minutes?
Yes, 7.
Okay, Brother Sayero.
Uhuru, the political action working group understands solely that everything that evolves around us as people or any people is the political action. That means through education, that means community commissioners, that means the county commission, that means the state, everything within the state, representatives and such, as well as the federal level. We also know that we definitely need our own platform. It's about liberation, as the chairman has always taught. It's about our liberation, and everything that we do, as you've listened to Comrade Akile Anai, everything on that platform represented me, represented you. And these are the things that the markings and the makings of a liberated people is to go at it as a candidate or as a support group for the fight of the people in mass who are the most beleaguered or beleaguered. That would be the African people in our communities who have suffered for over 600 years. And the strive and the goal is that liberation once again. So the working group is designated and focused on purely that factor. Now, I do agree that there are other people who suffer, like Native Indigenous people, Hispanics, and I'll say that more often than not, but I can think of no people as brutalized as those who have been wiped off the planet. That would be the Native Indigenous and Africans who were kidnapped and brought here and then taught to lose identity, taught to lose culture, taught to lose ourselves, taught through systems of the churches, taught through systems of the educational institutions, the very thing that we must tear down, the very things we must rebuild for ourselves, as the chairman would say, self-determination, responsibility, taking on our own agency. And then now we fight because the system sees that within the party, the Uhuru movement, and individuals that they would, such as a Belinda Parker-Brown or such as Lisa Davis, now they want to take us off the planet. So once you quiet those who are outspoken with agency, with a declared representation of practical science or scientific theory and practice, then that's when you hush the crowd. That's when you begin to, as they did on the 29th of of July 2022 in putting fear in the whole community by bringing in the tanks, by bringing in the tear gas, by bringing in the flashbang grenades, and then laser focused beams on the chairman's chest. As if he had stepped off, they would have assassinated him. And we know that. So what does that do with the rest of the community? That terrorizes the community. So we're here to invoke strength, to have people begin to come in and organization and begin to help grow their community, help grow our community, help grow our agency. That's the only way we'll get free. So that's why the Political Action Working Group is going to evolve, because everybody that's been involved for the past 2 days in this conference has exhibited just that factor, the strength of standing up, speaking out, speaking truth to power. That is what this working group is all about. Uhuru.
Uhuru. And Brother Sayero will also be developing the political education working group too. So y'all, we got stuff for you. We got stuff for you. Get involved.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
So next, and thank you so much, Comrade Sister Lisa Davis.
Uhuru.
None other than someone I met in 2006 as he was standing strong in the city of Benton Harbor, fighting against a ruthless, noxious traitor, a neo-colonizer named Pete Mitchell. He was the city manager at the time in Benton Harbor, Michigan. And I met Reverend Pinkney. He was standing out front of City Hall with a whole group of people saying, get rid of King Pete. And I remember joining him, and that's where we struck it off because of the fight that he had in his spirit. Reverend Edward Pinkney is the founder of the Black Autonomy Network community organization, BANCO, and is a political and social justice coalition working in Benton Harbor, Michigan, U.S., which was founded to protest the June 16, 2003 death of 28-year-old African-American Terrence Sherman. Yeah, that's when the township police ran into the city of Benton Harbor. This young man was on a motorcycle. They ran him into a wall in the city, out of their jurisdiction, but the Reverend will speak further on that. While being pursued, okay, it's in here. Pinkney was sentenced to 30 to 120 months in prison for purportedly forging a successful recall petition against Mayor James Hightower, and he did. So what they did, they put in forgeries, dates. I remember the petitions on throw an allegation on Reverend Pinkney with someone who had signed 7 or 10 different dates in red, I believe, on a page of one of the petitions. And that was done through the clerk's office or somewhere. He maintains his innocence in the face of conviction that's been proven based on flimsy evidence. I'm going to let Reverend Edward R. Pinkney take over from here. Uhuru, comrade.
All right now. Hey, it's going down. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me? It's going down. Drop the charges. 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 Drop the charges.
Drop the charges. Drop the charges.
There you go, because it's going down. And
it's going down.
That's right. You know, and I want to say this, you know, because I think this is so important. The struggle that has taken place in recent years in Benton Harbor is a case in point, one that holds on numerous lessons for the American people. The fight in Benton Harbor is a war where the Black folks will have prosperity, democracy, or live in poverty, or have clean, safe water under the heels of open corporate rule. The attack on democracy in Benton Harbor shows that the corporate power structure is determined to crush anyone, I don't care who you are, anyone that stands in its way. It is part of the process underway across America in many different forms. We are being attacked. We are at war, you see. And let me talk a little bit about the Black Holocaust. The Black Holocaust from 1619 to 1861 more than 15 million Africans were sold into slavery. Over 35 million were killed by the slave traders, making it the greatest Holocaust in the history of the world. And nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody. As a people that had been traumatized for over 450 years, we have 450 years of abuse, mistreatment, and torture, and hanging. They hung us whenever they want to. This was done by Christians. They went to church at 11 o'clock, got out at 1 o'clock, and hung a black man at 2 o'clock. And not one of them went to jail. Not one. You can't name nobody during that period of time ever going to jail for hanging a black person. And if he was with his wife, they would take his wife and cut the baby out of her and stomp the baby until it was dead. And nobody went to jail. Nobody. And worst of all, they would rape our women. They would have the husband take the wife to the big house where the master of the house would rape him and anybody else there could rape her, then call him to take her back and bring her his next oldest child. She could be 11. She could be 10. She could be 9. And they raped her. And nobody said a mumbling word. Nobody could do anything. America, you are killing black people. You are killing black people in the classroom, which Betty Davis spoke about. You're killing black people. You're killing us, and we're allowing it. No more critical thinking. No more black history. But you know what? I can't blame these white evil people for not wanting history to be taught. If I was as horrible as they are today, I wouldn't want my children to know either. So I can't fault you for that because you definitely don't want to know how horrible and evil you guys was. And number two, which is very, very, very important, the hospital. Do you realize that you had a better chance surviving as a baby during slavery than you do now here in Benton Harbor? The mother and the child both dies here in the city of Benton Harbor. We have the highest rate of a birth where the mother usually didn't die from this. The mother dies and the baby. And they won't even talk about it. They're killing us. America, you're killing black folks and you know it. And you're getting away with it. We cannot allow this to continue. We have to stand up. The attack on Chairman O'Malley is ridiculous. But we allow it. Black folks allow it. We have to fight. The courtroom is a sham, a straight up sham. But we don't know it because we don't do that much research. We don't know how bad it is. It's horrible being inside a courtroom. Let me tell you this quick story. In 2008, well, in 2007, I did a recall of this guy named Glenn Yarborough. I was convicted of it. I was given probation. And I wrote an article in the People's Tribune. And I quoted a scripture from the Bible. It simply said, if you do not hearken to the voice of the Lord, then all these things will come upon you. And they claimed it was a threat on the judge's life. They claimed it was a threat on the judge's life. Freedom of speech didn't kick into them because they already know how much money you have to hire a lawyer. See, a lot of times people don't know how deep these people are. They have all kind of angles, and it goes all across the country against black folks. And we let them. The hardest thing to do is get black people to support you on an issue against the government. That is one thing they will not do. They're not going to do it. But you have to go national and international. And that's what I did. They accused me. They claim I no longer had freedom of speech. I no longer had freedom of speech. This is what they were saying. That I was guilty of a threat on a judge's life. It never happened. They knew it didn't happen. And that's why, Chairman O'Malley, that's why it's so important that you fight this. You fight it and fight it and fight it. I lost on the local level. But the Court of Appeal ruled that I had freedom of speech. You can't put someone in jail for freedom of speech. I don't care what you do. You can't do it. No matter how hard you try, because each level, it gets more and more to your favor. Local level is tough. Local level is tough. And they will do whatever they can to stop you. That's what they do. See, you got to understand how they do. This is the evil empire, what you're dealing with. They're evil, they're wicked. And they will do everything in their power to stop you. This is not the land of the free and the home of the brave. It's the land of the free, all right, but it's the home of the slaves. If you're not a slave, they have no use for you. And they love black people. Now, don't get me wrong. They love black people. They love black people who have been robbed of themselves. They love black people. Buck dancing, boot licking, buck dancing, buck kissing. They love these type of people. These are what we call Sambos. And I deal with them. We got 9 elected officials here. Black. They work for the evil empire. 7 of them. We got 2 on our side. And we go after them. We label them Sambos. And then we have what we call the Sambo of the Year award. And we give them the Sambo of the Year award. They don't like it, but they earn it. Everything with me you earn. You just don't, it's something just not given. We make sure that we do what we're supposed to do. We don't allow them to get away with nothing. Because they, remember this, they work for the evil empire. They don't work for the people. And I can't believe that black people are willing to hurt black people. I can't believe that. You can't tell me that, all the hell that we've been through, all the hell we've been through, all the hanging, the raping, the traumatizing, and you want to be just like these people? I'm not buying it. Something else is going on here. And you think, look, and you start thinking you better than the next black person. A Sambo is a Sambo. A Sambo is the worst person there is in the world. And I tell you this, we got a lot of work to do, but we will never, ever, ever be free as a people until what educate us become more important than what entertain us. That's right. Black entertainers, athletes, is the new house of Negroes. But they need to start, we need to force them to have integrity, moral, and respect. We need to make them put back into the communities, grocery stores, health centers, gas stations, clothing stores. We need to force them to do this. And what they do, they listen to white folks. We have a star here, Wilson Chandler. I told him to get him a 501c3. When I told him to get a 501c3, the first thing he spread around the community, I wanted some of his money. And that people that know me know I am not motivated by money. I'm not motivated by money. I got a group of people that I do. I do a recall. I recall elected officials. That's what I do. And I'm good at it. New Buffalo. Belinda Parker-Brown has some relatives living in New Buffalo. But it's 99.1% white. They came to me and wanted me, what they want to pay me to help them recall 4 people. It's easy. It's basic. All you have to do is get the language right. And the language is anything they vote on. Anything. I don't care what it is, whether it's yes or no. They voted on a new waterfall. If they voted yes, you use that language. If they voted no, you use that language and send it in. They can't deny it on that level. 3 Oaks, Michigan, another white community came to me. They wanted to tell everybody, Buchanan, Michigan now, they want to use the recall. The recall is a good weapon, it's a powerful weapon. We must exercise. Black folks, we got to get better. We got to show these people who we are. We got to take a stand against things like this. And I'm going to close by saying this. I did do a recall, and they claimed that I had changed the date on the recall and charged me with forgery, another freedom of speech issue. There was no such charge as forgery on a recall petition. I knew this. I'm an expert. I know. But they sent me to trial and they convicted me of this. They actually convicted me with absolutely no evidence. It was overturned by the Supreme Court. But the point was, I had to go through it. And I say this to Chairman O'Malley and the group. Keep your head up. Make sure when you go in there, don't let them make you bow your head. You're dealing with bad people. Bad people do bad things. But you have to stay focused. And you're going to win this case. You're going to beat them down. Beat them down. Beat them down. Beat them down. Right now. Right now. I say it, and it's done. I'm through.
Uhuru, beat them down. Beat them down. Beat them down. Uhuru, I concur. And thank you so much, Brother Reverend Edward Pinkney. Uhuru, beat them down.
Uhuru,
beat them down.
Beat them down.
That's right, beat them down. Our next presenter, and I just love introducing this sister. I love her so much. I love introducing her. She is with the Louisiana United International. Sister Belinda Parker-Brown is going to be giving us an update on what's going on with Louisiana United. And dear sister, you have 10 minutes for this segment. Uhuru.
Uhuru. No, Pastor Pinkney get me so fired up.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Pastor Pinkney, okay. It's really serious, what this is really all about. The chairman, I go through some of his books that he writes. And one of the things that was so inspired to me that really opened up my eyes is that the fact that, this attack on our freedom of speech is about, African independence. It's all about, our eyes have came open now. Okay. We are very much aware of what happened in the past and what's happening to us now. And we're speaking up about it. Even our children are speaking up about it. Our elderly people, because a lot of them went through it. And now they're saying that their silence is not going to be a weapon. They're speaking up about it. So they want to silence us because, like Pastor Pinkney just said, they don't really want to deal with the fact that they were, and I want to use a proper pronoun. You know, we've been saying they, but the proper pronoun are the colonizers. You know, that is something that I have learned through our chairman and through the Black is Back Coalition. You know, who are these people that never intended for us to have our freedom, liberation, economic power or justice at all? They are the colonizers. They have this is their plan intended all along for us never to be a free people here in the United States of America. So, I just want to, get that, clear, make that clear that when they say that when you hear people like Pastor Pinkney say that they don't need no DNA, they don't need no witnesses, they don't need no evidence at all. It's what they say, okay? And they literally, are coming after us, and they don't need any proof. If they decide that they're going to concoct a case against you with fabricated, concocted, fraudulent, information, and the judge is in on it, the police is in on it, the sheriff, your lawyer, their lawyer, the prosecutor, the clerk of courts, all of them are in on it. That's the way it is, people. And I'm telling you, it's serious. What if it was you that paid your money to a lawyer? Okay, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 to a lawyer that was in on it. You just paid him to put his foot and everybody else's foot on your neck. You just paid him to do that to you. Okay, listen, this is happening. How? Okay, then, if you don't believe it, go read about it. Just watch some of these videos and stuff out there. A person would spend 20, 30, 40 years in prison, and all of a sudden they find out that he never should have been there in the first place. We see that stuff happening. And I'm here to tell you that Louisiana United International, we know why. I don't know if I'm going to be able to play my video at the end or not. I'm coming in late. It's been a lot going on. But I want to say what's happening here in Louisiana right now. I got to, bring you all up to date, okay? Because we have thousands of people that are, that are languishing away in these godforsaken hellhole prisons and jails here in the state of Louisiana. And not only that, there is some actions that's being taken. We're organizing and mobilizing and uniting with a lot of other grassroots organizations. I'm talking about grassroots organizations that are actually doing something. I want to say this too. We got a lot of these organizations out here, NAACP, the ABCDFG, that is grant chasers. They running around here just defunct. Okay, they saying one thing and doing something else behind my back, and it's not really bringing any type of liberation, or justice to our situations. And I want to say that because anytime an organization been around 150 years or more, and they running around, and we still in the same state and condition that we in, we can't see nothing that they really doing for us. Okay, listen, people. Listen, I'm talking about the Sister Lisa called them the Democrats and the whatever. Okay. But the truth of the matter is that, they're being exposed. They are being exposed for who they really are and what they really are about. Okay. So I just want to say that, but here in Louisiana, that they are trying to put our young children, I'm talking children, in Angola, which was known as one of the worst prisons and the most bloodiest prison in the world. Okay, they are, serious about putting our young people in these godforsaken hellholes, prisons and jails across the state of Louisiana, and we know why, because we have been fighting here on behalf of thousands of people. I'm talking thousands of people that was put in prison on a racist, unconstitutional Jim Crow law, and that was proven, with the work that we have done to prove that this was a scheme and a plot to put Black people in prison and make slaves out of them. Okay, it talks about, I want to read this, LUI have led a very serious effort, to, in here in the state of Louisiana, with our, with our legislators, to pass something meaningful to bring relief to these people that have been convicted up under this, unconstitutional non-unanimous jury, because that's what they did. They plotted and they schemed and they planned to, put a person in prison. I just talked about they don't have to have no DNA, no witnesses, no evidence at all. But the whole plan is to put them in front of an all-white jury and give them anywhere from 25 years to life, even if it was smoking a joint or whatever, and they really, a lot of people wind up, getting convicted. We nicknamed it the 10-2. Whereas, the Constitution says that you have to have a jury of your peers, and it has to be at least 12 jurors in order to get a life sentence conviction. So 20 years is life, pretty much. But, I want to say that, the Louisiana legislation, they have the power and, can take the responsibility to make these cases retroactive. So what we're getting ready to do is that we're going to be working along with some other powerful grassroots organization to say, look at here, these people need an opportunity to have a fair trial or else be let go free. And we're pushing, because what they tried to do after the United States Supreme Court ruled that what they did here was unconstitutional. Let me tell you how the fox guard the hen house. They're going to hand it back down to Louisiana, okay, and tell them to fix it. Okay, now what you think about that? Now, what they have done is basically said that, we're not going to fix it. We're not going to make it retroactive. We don't, these are cold cases, to bring all of those people back in front of, the courts, look at how much money it's going to cost us, so, they're making all kinds of excuses. But I want to leave that right there. And I want to, take up the rest of my time. I don't know how time, Sister Lisa, do I have about 2 more minutes?
Yes.
Okay. I want to say, people, when our freedom of speech is under attack, we cannot sit back, lean up against the wall, wondering about what everybody else is going to do. Okay. You can't do that no more. This is for the lives of our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. They already looking at us cross-eyed, okay, because we didn't sit back and let this type of stuff go on too long, and all we want to do is talk about it. Oh, look what they doing. They can't do this. They can't do that. And then we just wait to see what somebody else gonna do. So I'm here to challenge everybody that's listening to this webinar. It's been some powerful presentation. It's been victims that have made up their mind to get involved and participate in this movement to protect our freedom of speech. If you thinking that somebody else is going to do it for you, or you just wanting to see what somebody else going to do, or you hoping and wishing or whatever that somebody else is, it's going to be all right. What we're saying right now to you is that that's wrong. Okay, that is wrong. All right. These people are making up bald-faced lies against our chairman. And if we let him stand alone in this, it's something wrong with us. It's not them, us. It's something seriously wrong with us. If we stand with our backs leaning up against the wall and our fingers crossed and toes and all that kind of stuff and praying down to Jesus, okay? Jesus is not coming down. I mean, he's not going to be hung on the cross anymore, because I'm talking to some of these, these religious hypocrites out here, that, you want Jesus to do everything for you, okay? But you ain't doing nothing, all right? Stop that, all right? Stop that, because that is wrong. You have to get involved. The God that I serve have given us the power and the authority to rule and reign and take dominion over everything. So you need to really do some serious soul searching and find out who you are and what you have been called and purposed to do. And I'm here to tell you right now, today, you need to get involved with this movement. If you can't unite on nothing else, this is something that you need to unite and participate and get involved, and help us, stand with the chairman in Tampa, Florida, okay, for September the 3rd. We're going to be giving out all kinds of information, and if you can't come but one day, come on August the 31st, okay? Come on August the 31st, be there for the rally and the conference where, everybody have an opportunity to participate. So I'm done, Sister Lisa. I just want to challenge everybody to go to the Black is Back Coalition website, the Uhuru 3. And what we're saying is drop the charges now against the Uhuru 3.
Drop the charges now.
Drop the charges now.
Drop the charges
now.
Now. And Uhuru. And on that note, we have a 10-minute Q&A. Questions, folks? Well, I want to lead with this one comment. When I was listening to Sister Akile talk about her platform, and also Christina was when I was looking at her platform, guess who doesn't have a platform? Kamala Harris. People have been talking about that. You go to a website, you ain't gonna see no kind of platform, but you don't have to run on anything, evidently, but there's no platform whatsoever. They just ask for money right up front. And people seem to be going for that. So I just want to throw that into the mix.
Okay, Sister Lisa,
yes.
I know this is a discussion time, but I have a question,
sure.
In regards to this discussion. My question is why the colonizers, do this to us? I'm gonna open up my camera. I would like for someone to weigh in on, so that we can send a real clear message on why the colonizers do this to us as Black people here in the United States of America.
The chairman's going to take that one.
I just want to say that I think it's really important for us to understand that there's no mystery about what it takes to live. That all human society, more than anything, is motivated by the process, the need to produce and reproduce life. That's what it's about. All human society, no matter what society you're in. It's not about religion. It's not about culture or DNA or anything like that, because you don't have any of those things if you don't have life. So the driving force in human society is the production and reproduction of life. Part of what that means in part is reproducing ourselves as human beings. That is making babies and stuff like that, which is something that's constant under assault when you look at colonized people. And part of that is the ability to feed, clothe, and house yourself. And through the process of developing that, it gets better and better. You see human society moving from a point where somebody was chasing a rabbit with a rock following the seasons, hoping that something will grow, or waiting for lightning to strike and perhaps starting a fire. But the process of development of the capacity to produce life, we learn how to take those things on. So we don't chase a rabbit or anything like that. You go to your local supermarket or something like that to buy some dead animal to eat. But it's the process of, that's the driving force in human society. And what has happened is, with the emergence of this thing that human beings live with today, how human beings engage in producing life, what happened was an attack that was made on Africa. Africa is a central force, has been for the longest part of history. If you ever look at Africa, you see its centrality on the globe. And and part of that is made manifest by where you find the richest minerals and all this kind of stuff that's needed for development, et cetera. It's right there in Africa. And so this attack that was made on Africa by Portugal, by Europeans who were trying to find out when Mansa Musa, this man brought all that gold out in the 12th century, spreading all, moving from Mali in West Africa all the way to Mecca, had so much gold that he was giving away that he almost disrupted the economy, almost destroyed the economy of Egypt. And Europe was starving at this time. There wasn't a such thing as Europe, but England was so poor during this period of time. The economy was so bad that people, were eating the cats and dogs, and actually in England, instances of people eating their own babies. So the production of life is very complicated, very difficult. We talk about Europe, talk about places where white people are located or come from in the most recent history. You're talking about this thing where the struggle with nature was so severe. Growing food, making food, finding shelter, and this kind of thing, as compared to other parts of the world. And so what developed a long time ago, that most of this area that we call Europe produced life by taking it from other people. First, taking it from themselves. That's where you have the Vandals and other groups throughout this territory called Europe, where a means of production was stealing, robbing, vandalism, all this kind of stuff. Versus what you see happening in places like China, magnificent civilizations. Look at what the indigenous people here, the Maya, Aztecs, and stuff like that. Africa, all over Africa, you see an entirely different kind of process. I'm not making any judgment about peoples, but what I'm saying is that the material circumstances that we get born into influence our development. And what we now know as Europe developed not through its own, what came from itself, but what it took from other forces. And so now Europe learns to reproduce life through taking that from other people, a parasite. It becomes a parasite on everybody else. It attacks Africa. It attacks what we call the Americas. That's why you and I are here, come on, Sister Belinda. We are here on this territory right now, on this landmass, because white people, because of the poverty, desperation that's born of the poverty, the kind of political economy that's born of a process like that, chase Europeans out of Europe. And you've heard the stories about why they come here, they're looking for spices and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you think about this, you want to understand the notion of poverty, where a people would get on a ship, and at a time in history when they didn't know if they kept selling, they would sail off the earth to get a cup of nutmeg. That's poverty. And that's how you like that. That's how Europe was living.
Chairman,
of course, years ago,
why is it that
on the bottom of Europe, it attacks Africa? It begins this process of attacking Africa that ultimately leads to what is characterized as slavery, that sets that also developed most of what is now known as Europe, get involved in this practice too. So here's how you survive. Here's how you make it. You ain't got nothing. Take it from these people right here and began to ship us all around the world.
Chairman, I want to say, would you elaborate? Would you elaborate some more on why that should, why is it that it appeared to us that we're okay with that? Because this has been going on for so long.
But that's exactly right, because we're not okay. They kill those of us who try to lead us out of it. They kill Malcolm X. They put Marcus Garvey in prison. Marcus Garvey got steamship lines in 1920 for Black people. We haven't had a steamship line since then. And he built that, and they attacked Garvey, and they put him in prison. They say he was using the mail to defraud the people when Black people got stuck in their own ships. Never had it before. And so this is an instance where they use the law. And even if it was true, the thing is, if they had any decency about them, they say, well, we know they starve Black people. We know they don't have anything here, any place around the world. Why don't we put some money and give them the ships that they're trying to get? After all, they made so much, but they don't do that. They say, this man, and what does that mean? It means that if we take care of ourselves, that means they don't have access to us. They can't take our resources if we're using them for ourselves. That's one of the reasons they attacked Iraq, because in Iraq, the people have begun to industrialize and what have you. They're in the Middle East, and now they can use their own oil. If they can use their own oil, then Exxon can't get it. And then the local areas that you're familiar with. In all over Africa, there are all kinds of resources that they steal, and they need Africa on its knees. And they need us on our knees for two reasons. One, because we are the best forces who are going to defend Africa for what it's doing. Black people, even if you never thought about it before, when you see what's happening to Black people around the world, it resonates, because there's that deep, even hidden kind of national empathy that we have for each other. And the other thing is that if we can use it for ourselves, if we take access of it for ourselves, then what's Walmart going to do when we become successful with the markets that we create in our own community? What does that mean for the economy? This huge entity that can only exist because it is able to extract value from us. We the market. We the market. They can send anything they sell, they can do it to us. Even if they don't put it in our neighborhoods, they make it possible for others to come and suck our blood, and let the system rest on that. When you take care of yourself, then that's something they cannot get their hands on. In order to do this, if you have an economic base, if the economic base is slavery, the education is going to be based on slavery. I don't care what you say. That's what the education is going to be. The court system is going to be based on slavery. You ain't going to have as a slave, you're not going to see a court system based on freedom. How in the hell can a court system be based on freedom if slavery exists? How in the hell can a court system actually look out for the interests of the enslaved? The only time we're going to ever have an opportunity for the court to act like it's treating us fairly is if we can mobilize enough people. Because in the final analysis, the people who will make the decision of what the world is going to look like, despite the fact that they try to do everything they can to make it themselves look so powerful, all powerful. So anyway, that's what it is, Sister Belinda. They do that, and they create laws to do it, and they create rules and regulations that keep this thing afloat, that's based on sucking the blood of other people, and particularly of African people here and other places around the world. I hope I did justice to what you just read, and not push me on it.
Well, you have made it very clear of especially what they do to us and why they do it.
Look at Louisiana.
Just wish we had more. I just think about, you're like, what, 80? Well, I want to say, I don't know if it's 80. You don't appear to be 80, but, I didn't hear some of the other comrades say that you're in your 80s or on your way to being in your 80s. And we just, I'm just really, I'm telling you, I'm just not pleased at all about the fact that, you know, it's just taken us too long to get there, and also to get the reparation and liberation and the freedom that, you know, we need as a people here in America, because, you know, we just need more people like you, Chairman, that, you know, with the educational knowledge and this message, you know, this, you know, exposing this type of injustice and corruption that we have suffered and been, you know, treason and against us, you know, so, you know, tyranny against us, you know, as a people. And we got all of these churches, you know, I see pastors that get excited, you know, with patronizing, and other, you know, these European, you know, businesses and stuff. You know, I'm not against them having their businesses, but where is our businesses? You know, where are our hotels and hospitals and schools and, you know, malls and stuff like that for our communities? You know, why have it taken us so long to realize that, you know, this oppression is not, you know, we're losing a lot of respect with our children. You know, we're losing a lot of respect with, the church community. We just losing respect because we're just letting these people do whatever they want to do to us, you know, the colonizers.
Well,
you know, this stuff continue on and on.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, Sister Belinda, the observations you're making. And this is what it's all about. Because the fact is, it's not that we've been blind to it. Every society you will find there is inside that society an advanced sector of that population that goes out and tries to, for whatever reasons, that emerges, try to solve the problems in the society, in the communities and stuff like that. That's what you do. That's what Louisiana United is all about. That's what most of the people who are part of this coalition, they represent that advanced sector of the population, goes out and tries to solve the problems. That's not, white people are no different from that. It's not like white people are, so there's leadership that's available to them. Sometimes it represents itself in the Democratic and Republican Party, but all kinds of institutions throughout the whole society that allows for white people to exert and experience leadership that sets directions for the whole society. Sometimes they debate on what that leadership should look like. Sometimes the political organizations that they create debate what that political leadership should look like. But all of that leadership is designed to pursue the interests of that community. But for us, every time that we produce that kind of leadership, they slander it, they kill it, they imprison it, they do other things. So the vast majority, to the broad masses of people do not have access to their own leadership. They won't allow us to have access to our leadership, but they will allow the judge, for example, who wants to put you in prison for providing leadership to a young woman who they're trying to force to make some kind of plea deal. They will allow that person to become leaders of our community. They will allow the people who run that system to be the leader of the community who are wiping out, putting you in prison, slandering you, except that's the way the thing works. And that's the kind of system that we're up against. And that's why they attack you, because you represent the advanced sector in that population. You're the ones who are challenging what they're doing in Angola. You're the ones who are challenging what they're doing in the courts. That's the thing. You are that advanced sector that exists in any society. And for that society to be successful, it has to have access to its own leadership. But if you've got a situation where there is an organized situation, it's built into the system. If you have built into the system, everybody who benefits from slavery would do everything they can to keep the slave on the plantation. If you escape, you got snitches who go out and say, "Dad, that's the way it went," or shoot or kill themselves. It's built into the system. That's the problem that we're in. That's why we say the problem is systemic. That's what we involved in the struggle against colonialism. Colonialism is identified as a system. And that's the basic point I wanted to make.
You know, Chairman,
I just want to, because
our time is up. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're coming at the close of the program. And I know, Chairman, that you are slated to close us out. So what I just wanted to suggest is that we make the announcements for what's coming up. And then, Chairman, you can continue with what you were saying and everything like that in the close, because you are closing us out and we're at that point. And so I just wanted to get the announcements in, and then maybe Sister Kenge can also give us an update in terms of what we have collected. And then, Chairman, you can just continue right along with what you've been saying and close us out.
Yeah, Sister Lisa, can I say one more thing to the chairman? Because I think this is vitally important in regards to what's happening in our country right now with this presidential election. And that is that, you know, I exposed the Democratic Party here in Louisiana in regards to how it had been infiltrated and how they really was being bamboozled. I know you guys got different words like Sambos and Uncle Tom's, whatever, but we call them, I learned from you, Chairman, that they the petty bourgeoisie people that really don't have an interest for the people. So what they've been handpicked and paid to represent us, but they're really not for us. And what that is a struggle that goes on, in the Black communities, with the Black people that's trying to fight for liberation. I'm up against these people. I'm up against these so-called petty bourgeoisie sambos, like Pastor Pinkney say.
Yeah, I know that's right. And because they work for the system. They work for the system that oppresses us. They got blackface. That's white power in blackface. They hired to preach. They corrupt our preachers. The people supposed to be there representing God. They're the ones who Jesus talked about and had to run and kick the tables, the money, chase the money changers out. That's what they become, the money changers and things like that. They work for the system. If you remember, even the Yeshua of Jesus, who most of us grew up having some kind of relationship with, even he had to struggle against Roman oppression. You cannot find a time where they charged and put Jesus, locked him up, and took him before Pontius Pilate. Who took him before Pontius Pilate? It was opponents of his that was in the Jewish community. Then
turn around, Chairman. Turn around.
The boss?
Turn around so we can speak to the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at you. But they take him before the boss. And the boss is the Roman, the colonizer. These are sellouts who did that. Because just like in our communities, there were splits within the Jewish community, as it was characterized. So you mentioned the NAACP. Go look at your Bible again and check out what the Pharisees, come on, say it with me.
The Pharisees and
Pharisees. No, the Pharisees, right? Pharisees, is that right? Come on, I've forgotten so much of this stuff, but you check it out, they're just like the NAACP. And you check out the what's another sect? The Zealots. No, I'm not talking about the Zealots. Jesus was a zealot. John the Baptist was a zealot, and they were all fighting against the Roman colonialism. And that's the thing that Jesus broke with the others, and the others worked against Jesus to take him to the Romans. The others did that. And what happens, of course, is you get people who, like anti-Jewish and stuff, and they say how the Jews are the ones who killed God, what have you. No, there's a sector of the Jewish population, just like our population, like those people you just mentioned, like the people who Marcus Garvey characterized as the National Association for the Advancement of Certain People, right? This communities were split. And Rome even had picked Herod to be the king of the Jews. And then his daddy had the same role. They worked for Rome. They didn't work for the Jews, they worked for Rome. And look at Kamala. She works for Rome. Look at Barack Hussein Obama, he worked for Rome. He didn't work for the people. You understand? So the same thing. I mean, look at that. The Pharisees and I can't. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I got a Joe Biden.
Pharisees and Sadducees. Right. You got it. You got it right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at. And so here we come to the joint, kicking over the damn tables of the moneylenders. You remember what got John the Baptist in trouble? What was it? Say what? Yeah, he's talking about the man's wife, you know, and how she wasn't no good and all this stuff, and the wife's daughter, said, yeah, I want his head, and they cut off his head and brought it to him. But you won't find an instance where you people who talk Bible talk all the time to explain our phenomenon, they did not kill Jesus because he got a Bible verse wrong. They killed Jesus because he offended the colonizers. They still killed Jesus because some sellout Jews who represent a particular sector of that community, they went to him to try to trick him because they were trying to get rid of him because he was a problem. You're a problem, Sister Belinda. And so you got those sellouts trailing you and they walking up to you doing the same thing they did to Jesus. And they're asking you the question, should I pay taxes? Should I pay taxes? And why would they ask that question? Because they're paying taxes to whom? They're paying taxes to Biden. They're paying taxes to a war machine that's dominating the rest of the world like Rome was. And they're paying taxes to a tyrant that locks them up, puts them in prison, crucifies them on a regular basis. That's what they asked him. That was a Pharisee that asked him that. And he had to know how to try to talk in a way that didn't put himself in jail. Remember that? According to scripture. He said, why are you trying to trap me? He said, give unto Caesar what is his, and give unto God what is his. The point is that there was a sellout. They in our community too, because Yeshua was fighting against Roman colonialism. The Romans, the only white people in that area part of the world were Romans. That was the colonizers. Not that blonde, blue-eyed guy that they represented as Jesus. Couldn't have been, it's impossible, physically impossible for Jesus to be blonde and blue-eyed. Here you got the place where he operated in Africa, North Africa, and what would otherwise have been called North African hand, dug that Suez Canal that is split it from the rest of the territory at the crossroads of Africa and Asia. You ain't got no blonde, blue-eyed person being born there unless Mary was really, really, really up to something.
Wow. Wow, Chairman, we appreciate you. You can go ahead and give your final summation.
I want to make announcements.
Love and appreciate you so.
Right. Before that happens, do we have announcements to be made? I know we have a few. Definitely August 31st, come to St. Petersburg, Florida. There's going to be the Freedom Summer Rally. And of course, September 3rd for the start of the trial in Tampa. Please go to handsoffuhuru.org. Please go to that website. Please make sure that you are on the mailing list for Hands Off Uhuru, the Hands Off Uhuru Coalition that will be keeping everybody up to date in terms of next steps and what we need to do. Please also go to the Take Action section of the handsoffuhuru.org website and take those actions. Contact your legislators that they ask you to do. Make sure that you sign the petition. Make sure that you share this information. Yeah, somebody saying something?
You got it.
Oh, okay. And also, if you are in the New York City area, Wednesday, 4 clock in front of the New York Times headquarters. That's 8th Avenue between 40th and 41st Street, the New York Times headquarters. We will be there with the press conference rally, handing out information, calling out the New York Times, exposing them for how, you know, their corruption and how mainstream media is so co-opted. And we know that this is no secret. We know that they don't support us. They never have. But we're going to take every opportunity and use every pressure point that we have to speak out, to stand up, to let them know we're not afraid. We are organizing and we're coming strong. And I also just have to really, again, commend the vision and the leadership of the chairman and the Uhuru movement, because many times when the government comes after people and there are trials pending and they're threatened with going to jail, many times people go silent. Many times people are like, well, I can't talk about this because there's a pending court case. I just commend you strongly for not doing that. And I also commend the Black is Back Coalition as well and the Uhuru movement, because we did not repel at all. We did not weaken, we did not shrink. We continued on, and we didn't just continue on about what was going on with the chairman, but all the many other issues that are happening in our society. So I want to commend everybody. I think that's really strong, and it really sets an example to follow, and especially with the coalition that has been built up with the Hands Off Uhuru Coalition. And like I said, the website is a tremendous resource. Sister Kenge, do you have any announcements? Do we have any other announcements? Also, trial date for me coming up August 16th in South Orange, New Jersey. Please go to, I'll put the link one more time. We have a petition going around. I will send that around to people, but it's tinyurl.com/BIB Lisa Davis. And Sister Kenge, do you have any announcements, or can you give us an update on what we did collect for this weekend?
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
I want to thank Emmanuel, Kabula, LUI, the chairman, yourself, Sister Lisa, Sister Betty, Mwezi, Johan, Robert, Donald, Margaret, Rebecca, Dia, Jeremy, Ruby, Life, Zaki, and Sayero. Is there anybody else, before I give this total for the day, that wants to give, that hasn't had the opportunity? Now is the time. You can go to www.blackisbackcoalition.org/donate to make your donation. But I want to commend everyone for what they've given today for our memberships, our renewal memberships, and to say that today we raised $1,300. Remember, our goal was 300. I'm doing 1,000. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get to the 20 million, but I know you're going to keep giving, and by the end of this webinar, we'll have that 20 million. But again, I want to appreciate everyone for donating. I want to make sure that everyone is aware that while September 3rd, while we know that we will be victorious, the next place that we need to be is in Washington, D.C. for the 16th annual Black People's March on the White House. Before this webinar is over, you'll find a link in the chat for you to go ahead and begin to start registering now, because we're going to take our victory to DC and bring that house down to Uhuru.
Uhuru. And it just goes to show that we have the capability to really raise that kind of money in terms of our community to come together. We need to reorientation, of course, in terms of our, political views and stuff like that.
It's interesting you should mention that, comment, Vice Chair Lisa, because the federal government claims that in over a 6-year period, that the Russians bribed us by giving us $6,000. And so we just raised $1,300 with what we got yesterday and today. in the last several days and weeks, we've raised over $300 and some odd thousand just in defense of this campaign. So this notion that somehow we are on sale to the Russians for $7,000 over a 6-year period is absurd. It's as absurd as anything else that they've said, like about us. I want to thank you so much. I really want to express appreciation to this incredible steering committee. For those of you who don't know, the steering committee is comprised of the heads of the different organizations that's represented in the coalition. Every organization that becomes formally a part of the coalition is represented on the steering committee. In addition to that, the steering committee is comprised of the group that we characterize as coordinating committee that's responsible for the work that goes on a daily basis. And, responsible for general leadership, for leadership of day-to-day work, and the working groups are a part of this as well, because the working groups are dealing with stuff all the time, but so is people who like function as a treasurer and primary organizers and things like that. So that's who we are. And it's an extraordinary steering committee. And people who've been here today and over the last period have had an opportunity to see what incredible forces constitute this steering committee. It's not just a steering committee that talks. My uncle used to say a long time ago that conversation is the cheapest commodity on the block. Everybody's got one. So it's not just people who talk, but it's people who did as Marx talked about, not just talking about how describing the world, but changing it. And that's what this steering committee is about. These organizations, people on the ground. Look at Sister Betty Davis. Look at Sister Belinda. Look at Sister Lisa Davis, who you can't go to your computer without seeing her in some kind of demonstration, protesting, standing up for the people, and that kind of thing. So it's an incredible steering committee, and I want to salute you, and to not just because you do stuff, but also because even after this attack on the party and the Uhuru movement, that was designed to frighten you. That was designed to make you say, I don't want to have anything to do with those people because the United States government will attack. They might come to my house. They might do this to me. But the fact that what happened instead was that the steering committee got closer, and the will of the coalition was stronger as a consequence of that. I like that because that's testing. There's some people who've been with our movement, and some people are not with our movement now because they were cowardly. They ran when this thing happened, but the vast majority didn't. We have grown more since this attack on us than we had grown in the previous several years. So I just want to express my appreciation there. And again, for the last 2 days, we have a grand, what? Is that right? Yeah. So it's not much.
We raised it. Our goal was $1,000 yesterday.
Right.
And $1,000 today.
Right.
So for 2 days.
For 2 days, we raised $3,813. Okay.
Uhuru!
All right, you did really good. Yeah, thank you so much. That's a grand total.
Uhuru!
See, that's why Comrade King is so valuable, because we would have left there thinking we only raised $1,000 more, so that's good. And I also want to remind us that this conference of the Black is Black Coalition is happening within the context of Freedom Summit. It's one of the events. There's stuff that's going on all the time right now. People are going out every day, putting up posters, delivering flyers to people's homes, to stores, and things like that, holding up banners in communities, speaking to a different organization and pursuing the campaign to elect Comrade Akile. Every day, this is the kind of work. And it happens within the context that we call Freedom Summer, something that was initiated 60 years ago by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And I was a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. It was initiated in Mississippi, and it was around freedom from murder of our people. And the very first day, it called for people from all over the country to come into Mississippi, which at that time was seen as the center of the oppression that African people were experiencing. It was an exaggerated form or expression of that oppression. And people went into Mississippi, and a lot of them were white people. On the first day of Freedom Summer, 3 people killed, 2 of them were murdered, and 2 of them were white people. And Freedom Summer of 1964, 60 years ago, organized around elections. Black people wanted to participate in elections, organized to keep ourselves from being terrorized. At that time, the terror was supposed to just been coming from Southern police, etc., or Southern white people. That's how it was expressed at that time. But today, 60 years later, we are being attacked by the FBI for participating in elections. That's what the election 2017, 2019. 60 years later, it's not the Ku Klux Klan or Southern sheriffs and stuff like that who are attacking us. It's the federal government in its own name that's attacking us. And I just think that's something that we should understand and recognize. I'm inviting people because they've done such a good job of assaulting our right to even experience our own history, to know history. In schools, it can't be taught because they say they can't teach it because it makes white students feel bad or something to that effect. I'm saying that Google Freedom Summer, 1964. Google it, look it up and see what it meant. See how it gave birth to Fannie Lou Hamer and to activists who went throughout Mississippi, organizing the people, providing political education to the people, establishing freedom schools of the people that would eventually morph into what people came to recognize as Head Start and stuff like that. We did that ourselves. And so Google that, and then see how Freedom Summer led to, contributed to the absolute need for the United States government to pass a civil rights bill, first of all, in 1964, the same year. And then in 1965, the government was forced through these kinds of struggles to pass a voting rights bill. This came from Freedom Summer. And then, but when they did that, at the same time they were doing those things that our movement forced them to do, they killed Malcolm X in 65. They killed King in 68. They were killing members of the Black Panther Party all around this country. And that was what was happening, so that even though they now had the right to vote, what they did was make sure you didn't have nothing to vote for, nobody except Joe Biden's organization, the same organization, the same Joe Biden, the same guy who is the president, who is declared to be so enfeebled that he can't do the right thing, was unable to do the right thing in 1963 when he was a senator and he voted against the Civil Rights Bill, that he opposed busing that will help Black people get into the schools that Joe Biden now says he believes he should have been going to because he didn't want his children to go to school with animals. Why the hell is it that the ones who murdered us, blew up our homes, committed rape and all kinds of crimes against us, they are not on the defensive, but the ones who've been victimized by them are supposed to be on the defensive? We have to offer an explanation. Did you do that? They said you did it. Did you do it? Why the hell would I have to do that? Why don't you say, hey, you got a history of murdering Black people. You got a history of framing up Black people. You got a history of bombing churches. You got a history of doing all these things to keep Black people from being free. Why in the hell are those of us who've been victims of be on this stand now that we have to explain we didn't do it? So this is Freedom Summer. And as I mentioned, we've got forces on the ground now. You should be here. Every Sunday, there's a rally where we provide political education. We're going to be doing this from now through the end of this trial. There's going to be activity, and the center of the African Revolution is clearly going to be something, not just the whole anti-colonial movement. Right here in St. Petersburg, Florida, the city of African resistance. So that I wanted to just mention. I want to thank Comrade Vice Chair Lisa Davis again, Comrade Akenge, all of you who travel from various places as far as way as San Diego, California, to get here from Chicago, from St. Louis. Somebody say something. What did I mention? DC. Just want to really appreciate the fact that you came here. Want to appreciate Comrade Sister Akile Anai, who about the bus. She real pregnant. And running for office, and we're gonna get her elected. And I want to say that right now, I haven't been convicted of anything, but they took my passport. I have to report to them once a week. And they can come to my home anytime they want to come to my home. These are the conditions that I'm living under right now, going into September 3rd, where they intend to put me in prison for the rest of my life. So they took my passport, have to have permission. They can come to my home anytime they feel like coming to my home. And then most of the time since they've come, they didn't come with grenade launchers. They didn't come with flashbang grenades and armored vehicles, but they're there and they're armed when they come. Also, I think that during this discussion, there was so much that's said. I'm not even going to try to go through everything, but there's some things that I have to mention. This whole question of free speech. Again, I want to say that the government lied. We didn't do what they said they said we did. But that ain't even the real issue. The real issue is even if we did it, it was covered by the First Amendment rights, the Constitution. That's what our lawyers are arguing. That even if they did what you said they did, we didn't violate the constitutional rights that supposedly are there for us, that you violated those constitutional rights when you arrested them, when you indicted them, etc. But we didn't do it. So I just wanted to say that. And also, the whole question is raised about the media and why you can't see this in New York Times and how these comrades are going to go to the New York Times and knock on the door. They're not using flashbang grenades or armored vehicles, anything, or knock on the door or have a demonstration outside and say, why aren't you covering this case? This is supposed to be a case of national security. You're supposedly prosecuting them because they're working for the Russians to disrupt and sow discord in this country. So that question is going to be asked. But the answer to that, of course, is we've said all along, the question of free speech is not simply my right to say something, it's the right of the people to hear what I say. They can dismiss it after I've heard it, but they got a right to hear it. They got a right to hear an opinion that's different from the government. That's the free speech declares that right. But if you have an institution like the New York Times, like the Washington Post, like these major entities that engage in self-censorship, that say they attack their own capacity for free speech so that I can't be heard by people who would hear me through these institutions that they've created. It's self-censorship. It is colonial self-censorship. So they believe in free speech as long as the only thing you can hear is what they want you to hear. And so this is an assault too on the right of the people to hear. And that's a free speech issue beyond what they like to refer to as freedom of press. Because they got the freedom of press, but they won't allow it to be exercised for free speech. They would censor themselves before they allow anybody to hear what we have to say. So I wanted to also just say that this question of education is one of the things that resonated, I think, a lot throughout this meeting. And the question of free speech as it relates to education. There's a woman named Darlene Lawson, I think her name was. She was over the school board. She was the leader of the school board, was it, in Oakland, California? Wasn't her name Darlene Lawson? Anyway, Oakland, California had a majority African school board. And I think her name was Darlene Lawson. And you had these major corporations that we were in battle with in Oakland for a long period of time, because they were turning Oakland. They wanted to change Oakland. That was the majority city. They wanted African. They wanted to chase Africans out of Oakland, California. Africans were made destitute, and many Africans were living in the bushes, in the parks and stuff like that. And our party got involved in taking that on. And they wouldn't even change the places where the bus stop happened in downtown Oakland, because so many Africans were there that they said it would scare away the white people who they were trying to bring into Oakland. And this was a problem also for Clorox and Bechtel and some of the other major corporations. What was the shipbuilding corporation? Can somebody remember that? Kaiser and what have you. And they were all trying, all of them, this is extraordinary. You see the heads of Bechtel, Kaiser, Clorox coming to school board meetings because they wanted to take the school board, the control of the schools away from the African community. That was their objective. And when they couldn't take it away from the African community by vote, they spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to get somebody else elected. When they couldn't do that, they went to the state legislature using somebody who worked for Willie Brown, who was the lead politician, black politician in California, one of the biggest in the world, in the country, and who had a dalliance, an entanglement, to borrow a phrase, with Kamala Harris back in the day. There are pictures of Willie Brown and Kamala Harris, smooching or something to that effect. But they used him. And then they turned the school board over to the state. That's what the one brother Jeremy was talking about in part. That was part of what he was talking about. That's what part of what Comrade Sister Betty Davis was talking about. So they took the school board from the African community, turned it not over to the mayor, but to the state. So the state now was in control of our school board. And like Jeremy said, they used stuff like the scores, test scores and things like that as the basis of justifying that. This question of education and control, community control of the schools is the fundamental question. And I wanted to, I'd like to acknowledge that because they treat our children. The education system in this country works like this anyway, but it's especially difficult for African students. Because the education system treats the child, the student who comes to school, like an empty vessel. There's nothing in the brain, and they pour everything into your brain because you ain't got nothing to contribute to it. But that's really something that's bad for Africans and Mexicans and other people like that, because they deny that there's any history, that we don't have any history, we don't have any culture, we don't have anything that we are contributing. We just these empty vessels for them to put white nationalist garbage into our brains. That's what our children are. That's how they treat our children. That's why they have, people Michael Jacksoning themselves and skin bleaching and doing all this other kind of stuff that to the detriment of our community. That's what they do with indigenous people, and they lock them up in these boarding schools throughout the country to turn them into white people. That's what they're doing, I think, with even Palestinian children who they're kidnapping and adopting into white families, etc. That's the kind of education that they're really involved in doing. We don't want that. We reject that. The educational question is a critical question, and I really appreciate Comrade Sister Betty Davis for holding that up. And also that this question of looking at the presentation that was made by the good Reverend Pinkney, who comes from a city where the colonial conditions are such that people couldn't drink the water. And I'm saying a city, but that's something that prevails throughout this country, even in the city we're standing in now. Just looked in the newspaper and they said hundreds of thousands of gallons of wastewater is into the drinking water system. I'm sorry, I know some people out of town are just kind of what, but and there was a time when Akile and Jesse were running for office, talking about millions of gallons of wastewater that was in the drinking water system. Why in the hell would anybody need Russians? Why the hell would we have to be employed by Russians to describe what's happening to us in this country and what the United States is responsible, not only here in this country, but around the world? Of course, it's garbage. But I wanted to just express my appreciation to everybody and all of the presentations that's been made that clearly reveals the reality that we are living with. And so come on into St. Petersburg, Florida. Let me see what I got here. And I'll tell you. Oh, the good Reverend Pinkney. Well, our total now at $4,113. The good Reverend Pinkney has just made a $300 contribution. And if we haven't learned anything at all, when you get in trouble, what you do?
Call Pinkney. Call Pinkney. You got to call him.
Call Pinkney. Right on. And it's on. Right? Thank you so much. And we invited everybody to come into St. Petersburg. Surely we want you here on the 31st. And we want you here on the 3rd of September. I want to also, I might not have done it, but I really want to express appreciation to Comrades Penny Hess, chairwoman of the African People Solidarity Committee, one of the most, one of the most courageous persons you want to meet. Because when we first organized the African People Solidarity Committee, we ran into a whole whirlwind of fecal matter that didn't make it into the water supply in St. Petersburg, Florida. And from all kinds of forces, from white people who characterize the solidarity movement as white lesbians working under the leadership of black men, from white so-called communists who said that it wouldn't work because white people, workers or whomever, would not work against their own interests, meaning working under the leadership of black people. We ran into Africans who logically were suspicious because of their experience. Every time they see white people in an African organization, the Africans were usually running it. And lessons that we've learned that led to the emergence of Malcolm X and Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee put us on a trajectory that would reject certain kinds of relationships with white people. But the most significant thing that happened there was what the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee did. When it told the white members of SNCC to leave SNCC and go back to the white community and work in the white communities to take this stuff on. And of course, they couldn't, no matter what their integrity may have been there, because the fact is that they have interests separate. As white people, if they operate as white people, their interests are separate from African people. So so those people who were supposed to go back and do stuff, they did some incredible stuff. Free speech movement in Berkeley, California, and then the white issue was the issue. It was the right of white people, students, to stand up on top of cars and use profanity. It really degenerated to that level. And these were heroic figures whose name I could call. The whole issue of being able to go and oppose the war in Vietnam vehemently, hold demonstrations, significant kinds of anti-war demonstrations. So they exercised all those rights, which was a right not to be sent back to the United States in a body bag. When you talk about Vietnam, that was where the political education was coming from. But the difference here is that we don't ask white people to go into the white community and to exist and exercise what you think is the best thing for us. We say that in order for this thing to work, that white people have to come under the leadership of the anti-colonial revolution led by black people in this country. That's what it is. And so, and I'm saying this to, as it relates to, to many of the Africans who are quite suspicious, and they're not as suspicious today as they were some years ago, because nobody believed what we had until they actually experienced it on so many different levels. And the reparations movement is something that has grown exponentially in part because of what we've done with the solidarity movement. So we're not waiting for governments, we're not waiting for anything like that. We say the reparations issue is to be resolved in the people, in the African people who now become the critical forces, not the government. That's our perspective. And I would say this is a particular perspective of the African People's Socialist Party. And that the people, the white people who have an opportunity to engage in collective self-criticism by saying that we know the crimes that have been committed by white people against Africa and African people, here is our contribution to repair that damage. It's Jesse Neville. I want to acknowledge and appreciate you being here, Jesse, Comrade Jesse, who is a leader of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And that's an organization under our leadership that has members in more than 130 cities in this country. That's gone behind enemy lines, more or less. That's working in the white community all the time. That's talking about reparations. That makes it easier today for people to hear the question of reparations than it's ever been before, because it's coming also from the white community. When we first initiated the reparations movement, African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement, when we first initiated this, we were considered a lunatic fringe. You must be out of your mind to think that's going to happen. We initiated a tribunal that quantified the amount of value stolen from Africa and African people in this country since the enslavement. And we initiated that process. It's science, and we got that being worked in the white community among the colonized. They're wearing shirts. I support reparations to African people. This is stuff that's growing, and many of the nationalists who say, why are you working with the white people, et cetera, don't even understand what's happening right under their noses as we're pushing the reparations movement. And that's one of the reasons the government attacks us, because it said we had ran people for office on the platform for reparations. And I want to say we're really glad to see Comrades Jesse and Comrade Penny here, Comrade Amanda, who was in that house with Jesse when they raided on July 29th, and who had the, what do you call it, was able to keep her composure to the extent that she recorded the thing that you hear on the video saying, this is the FBI, that's Amanda, because she turned the recording on her phone on while they were saying all of this stuff. And so Amanda was there, held at gunpoint. And, you know, I could say something like Comrade Ruby, and I'm gonna just say it briefly because people are looking at me, and Comrade Akile looked like she might have that baby any moment, you know, so she, but, you know, somebody, you know, who, when the party working in Oakland, and we took over this park where they had forced homeless people, that pushed people out of their homes and had people living in the park, sometimes under the bushes. They call it the Old Man's Park. We changed the name to Uhuru Park. We initiated a process where we began to feed the people who were there, which is nothing, but to organize the people. And so we brought organization there, and people began to clean up the joint, and also to become part of an opposition to the plan to kick African people out of Oakland. And the police attacked us in Oakland. They used every means of transportation they had. They came on horseback, they came in helicopters, they came in cars, motorcycles, etc. And Comrade Ruby, you know, just valiantly stood up, you know, and there are pictures of them with Ruby on her belly, with knees in her back and stuff like that. These are the comrades who are in here with us now, who represent part of the foundation of the movement we're involved in. And then, you know, you've heard about Comrade Akile, who, and the guy, one of the persons she's running against now, who's been endorsed by the government and given a whole bunch of money. You know, when she ran for office, Barack Hussein Obama, who was the president of the United States, endorsed the opponent because she was talking about reparations, and Obama was against reparations. And here she was, and she was driving them crazy with this campaign and what have you. So they had, for the first time, the only time Obama got involved in a local election campaign, came out to endorse the anti-reparations folk that she was running against. That's one thing. The other thing is that when she was something like, what, 14? Was it 14 years old? The guy who she's running against now, who's supported by the same kind of Obama forces, when he was in office at that time, and he was in this building with campaign, with some kind of campaign-related thing that we were doing. And this 14-year-old, this 14-year-old young woman stood up and just really exposed him, just busted him up all one side and down the other. I had to pull her off of him, because, I had to pull her off of him because she was really wasting this guy. So she's running against him now, but she doesn't have the kind of money he has. And she hasn't had the kind of time to prepare for this, because she's a part of the summer project, and she's waging the part of the campaign hands-off Uhuru. Part of the campaign, that is to say, to make them drop these ridiculous charges, and her presence is clear evidence of how fallacious, she said it herself, how fallacious the charge is about why she ran for office, that the Russians paid her to run for office. Well, they said the Russians paid her to run for office 2017, 2019. Who's paying her now? You understand? The point is, we're still here. All the things that they've tried to do to push us into silence, to keep our people from being free, to keep our people from having the courage to stand up for freedom. All of that has been lost. And so I want to really express appreciation to all of you. This incredible team of forces that's a part of the steering committee, to the engineers and people who made this stuff happen, to Comrade Emmanuel Maku, who represents another burst of energy and brought into this movement, to Comrade Paul Pumphrey, who's going to be here for the duration, who is raising the African question in a very critical way, who will be parts of a discussion that we'll be having regularly between now and the end of the trial that they intend to hold on beginning on September 3rd. So having said that, comrades, they killed Malcolm, they killed Martin Luther King. In 1968 alone, they killed 30 members of the Black Panther Party. They killed Comrade, Lawrence, I'm not talking about Lawrence Ham. Am I talking about Lawrence? Okay, I get all these. Lawrence Mann. They killed Comrade Lawrence Mann, a co-founder of the party. They killed so many people. We don't even know how many people they killed or how many people they arrested during the struggle in the 1960s. Killing all of those people, however, has done nothing to prevent this reality that we are looking at today. Black is back. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Black is back. Uhuru.
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 Black is back.
And Black's gonna be in St. Petersburg too. We're gonna be there for you, Chairman.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your support. We greatly appreciate it. And we got to build this move. We gotta make things happen. We got to change things. Uhuru. Good night, everybody.
Uhuru.
Self-reliance, self-determination.
Uhuru. Yeah.
Uhuru.